Chapter 6:12. That evening, because Kitten needed to report to the Supernatural Research Department, Isha went with her and did not accompany Noah. In this situation, Noah basically had a supportive attitude. In the beginning, Isha, who had no one to rely on and was at her wit's end, came to Noah's house. Noah was the only one who took her in and showed her kindness. Noah was the only one who took her in. Therefore, Noah hoped that Isha could expand her circle of friends with Kitten and meet more people, so that she would not rely on him like a life-saving straw. That would not be good for Isha. If this continued, who knew when Aisha's tense nerves would snap? Therefore, Noah also secretly asked Kitten to take Isha around more, which would be beneficial to Isha. Fortunately, although Isha was a very devout believer, her heart was not poisoned by this belief. She treated all demons as disasters and treated them like ordinary people. She got along very well with the people of the Supernatural Research Department. If this continued, even if Isha's contact with the church was completely cut off, she would still establish a good relationship with the demons, right? Therefore, Noah was quite satisfied. Walking out of the school building, Noah, who planned to go home, had just stepped onto Academy Avenue when the commotion in front of him attracted Noah's attention. "Who are you?" Attracted by such a puzzled voice, Noah raised his eyes and looked forward. At the school gate, 3 figures faintly appeared in Noah's eyes. Among them, 2 of them were people that Noah knew. One was a boy who was a little noisy. The other was a very good-looking boy. It was Yuta Kazunari and Kibayudo. Across from Muto Issei and Kibayudo, there was a handsome man with silver-white hair, who was no less handsome than Kibayudo. He was staring at Muto Issei with a serious expression. Looking at this scene, Noah's brows slowly furrowed. His gaze was instantly attracted by the handsome man with silver-white hair. He stared at the other party closely. This silver-haired man had a magical aura on him. It was not the magical power in Noah's body that was used to perform magic and magic, but it was the demonic power that belonged to all demons. That man was a demon. However, in the aura of the other party's mana, Noah felt a very strong and ferocious power. That power Noah was very familiar with. As the Fire Annihilation Dragon, Naz had this power. As the Sky Annihilation Dragon, Wendy had this power. As the Iron Annihilation Dragon, Gajalu had this power. As the Lightning Annihilation Dragon, Laxus also had this power. Even in the world of the God Slayer, Noah had encountered this power many times. That was the power of the dragon. At that moment, Noah walked over without batting an eyelid. At the school gate, Yuta Kazunari, who was being stared at by the silver-haired man with a serious expression, seemed to be a little scared. After taking a step back, he could not help but shout at the man, "You! Why are you looking at me like that? Let's be clear. I like women. Not that kind of interest. Say no more, Ishinkun." At the side, Kibayudo seemed to be planning to take over with Yuta Kazunari. When Yuta Kazunari took a step back, he stepped forward and protected Yuta Kazunari behind him as he looked at the silver-haired man with vigilance. This man is not an ordinary person. Not an ordinary person. Yuta Kazunari was puzzled at first, but then his expression froze as he panicked. Could it be one of those guys that Sensei Noah and senior sister Ria said had their eyes on the sacred gear in my body? When this sentence reached the ears of the people present, before Kibayudo had time to respond, the silver-haired man laughed. "You're right. I'm only interested in the sacred gear in your body. If I have to say why, I can only say that fate has made it impossible for me to ignore the sacred gear in your body." Fate? Yuta Kazunari and Kibayudo were both stunned. "Yes, fate." The silver-haired man smiled indifferently. "You and I, the White Dragon Emperor and Red Dragon Emperor, will fight sooner or later." "White Dragon Emperor and Red Dragon Emperor? What's that?" "You mean the White Dragon Emperor and Red Dragon Emperor?" Yuta Kazunari, who had intended to ask this question, was shocked before he could speak. He looked at Yuta Kazunari with a confused expression. Could it be that the sacred gear in Ishichikoen's body is one of the 13 types of longulness, the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, transformed from the 2 heavenly dragon in the past? The silver-haired man stared at Yuta Kazunari, and the smile on his face became a little cold. "Others may not be able to detect the sacred gear, because your sacred gear, has yet to awaken, but I know. The white dragon in my body told me so. White dragon. Kiba Yudo seemed to have understood something, and looked at the silver-haired man with great caution. One of the 13 types of longulness, the sacred gear transformed from the 2 heavenly dragon in the past. The white dragon emperor's divine dividing. That thing is in your body? The silver-haired man didn't even look at Kiba Yudo, nor did he answer Kiba Yudo's question. He just kept looking at Hyuta Kazunari, and after a long time, he sighed in disappointment. The existence known as the double heavenly dragon still fought as it pleased during the war between the 3 great powers in the past. It was a famous enemy, and the person who possessed the sacred gear, transformed from the double heavenly dragon, should have inherited this fate and continued to fight. When I found out about this, I was a little excited. I didn't expect that this year's Red Dragon Emperor didn't even awaken the sacred gear. It's really disappointing. Why are you so disappointed in others? Hyuta Kazunari shouted angrily. I don't know what you're talking about. The current you doesn't even interest me. Ignoring Hyuta Kazunari's shouting, this white dragon emperor raised his head and looked at Komodo Academy. Isn't there a god slayer in this academy? Let him come out. You. Being looked down upon by the white dragon emperor, Hyuta Kazunari was getting angrier and angrier, and he couldn't help but want to step forward. Ishinkoan. Kiba Yudo quickly tried to stop him. However, before he could do that, a voice broke into the scene. So that's how it is. Thank you for helping me solve my doubts during this time. Saying such a sentence, Noah walked out of the academy step by step, his dark eyes flashed and the corner of his mouth raised. The White Dragon Emperor and Red Dragon Emperor have the power of the 2 heavenly dragons in their bodies. So that's how it is. No wonder you have the aura of a dragon. And Hyuta Kazunari can also trigger my authority. In the past, one of the authority of Noah's 10 incarnations, the Dragonoid, had an inexplicable reaction to Hyuta Kazunari. If this man who called himself the White Dragon Emperor said that Hyuta Kazunari had the power of the Red Dragon Emperor in his body, then it would explain why Noah's Dragonoid reacted to him. After all, Noah's Dragonoid has the ability to kill dragons, and it's an incarnation that can cause great damage to dragons. It's probably because Hyuta Kazunari's Red Dragon Emperor power hasn't awakened. So Noah can't detect its existence, so the Dragonoid reacted as if to remind Noah, right? Sensei. Seeing Noah's appearance, Hyuta Kazunari and Kiba Yudo suddenly had a backbone. The silver-haired man, on the other hand, shifted his gaze to Noah. His eyes lit up slightly, and an expression full of battle intent appeared on his face. You are the God Slayer, right? Chapter 6:13. You are the God Slayer, right? Along with this sentence, in addition to the voice, there was also a strong sense of tension. That was entirely because of the battle expression on the face of the White Dragon Emperor. Perhaps because there was no way to suppress the battle in his heart. Around the White Dragon Emperor's body, a faint magical power rose. Magical power? Kiba Yudo, who was protecting Itsune behind him, was extremely surprised. Are you a demon? Kiba Yudo's surprise was indeed necessary, because the sacred gear made by the god in the Bible will only be lodged in the human body. However, the White Dragon Emperor's body had magical power, which proved that he was still a demon. Usually, this situation just represented a problem. That was the man in front of him, who possessed the god's destruction tool, Longulness. And the White Dragon Emperor's light wings, divine dividing, was either a human who had reincarnated into a demon, or he was a hybrid between a demon and a human. This situation was not uncommon in the demon world. However, if the owner of the Longulness became a member of the demon faction, it would have already spread throughout the entire demon world. Kiba Yudo had never heard of the man in front of him. My name is Wally. The man who called himself the White Dragon Emperor introduced himself. Although you will still be confused, I will still explain. I am currently in the camp of the Fallen Angel. Fallen Angel? Noah frowned. The Fallen Angel's people actually came to the demon's territory. It seems that you are going to make trouble again. I don't know what the plan is, but as for me, when I heard that there is a God Slayer here, I couldn't help but come and see. The handsome man named Wally opened his hand to Noah, and there was a strong fighting spirit on his face. An existence that can kill gods. If I can fight it, I should be able to know the difference between me and the so-called god and demon king, right? That is to say, you are a battle maniac. Noah stepped forward and raised his hand to stop Kiba and Kiba from following him. It's just that, I didn't expect that my news has already spread to the fallen angel. Undoubtedly, it has only been a few days. The demon's confidentiality work is really unprofessional. Don't worry, because not many people believe that you are a person who has really killed a god. Wally put his hand down weakly, but his eyes were staring at Noah from beginning to end. I am also here to confirm this. After that, behind Wally's back, a pair of wings suddenly flashed in a flash of light. It was a pair of white wings that seemed to have been meticulously made. The surface of the wings was like a film of light that flashed with a faint blue light. White Dragon Emperor's light wings, divine dividing. Wally. Just when Wally activated the divine dividing wings, Hayato Issei, who was being protected by Shiba Yudo, suddenly let out a bitter cry, and tightly grasped one of his hands, his face full of pain. Ishitin-kun. Kiba Yudo was shocked. Huh. Noah's brows were deeper and deeper. First, he glanced at Wally, who had a smile on his face, and then glanced at Kiba Yudo, who was holding his hand behind him and crying in pain. And he suddenly understood. Sensing the appearance of the White Dragon Emperor, the Red Dragon Emperor in Kiba Yudo's body finally reacted? This is really surprising. The unawakened Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear actually reacted to the appearance of the White Dragon Emperor's divine dividing wings. It seems like this man named Hayato Issei has a high affinity with dragons. Varley couldn't help but glance at Hayato Issei. It's a pity that the sacred gear still hasn't awakened. Is it because the host's power is too weak? No matter what, it's not a good thing to let you get close to Kiba Yudo. Noah looked straight at Wally and narrowed his eyes. So sorry, although I don't know why you, a guy from the fallen angel camp, is a demon, please leave. Without giving Wally time to reply or even react, Noah waved his hand fiercely. At the same time, in Noah's heart, the stone plate connected to the 10 incarnations authority turned directly and pointed to the storm pattern. Boom. A violent wind suddenly shook from Wally's feet, and it quickly turned into a tornado, wrapping Wally in it. What? Wally felt as if his body was suddenly nailed to the void. A burst of invisible wind pressure squeezed in from all directions, causing Wally's body to tremble. He couldn't even move an inch. Immediately, the tornado that tightly wrapped Wally in it suddenly burst open, completely turning into a shock wave. Boom. The violent wind wave seemed to explode in place, and it mercilessly shook Wally's body. Ugh. Wally groaned, and his whole body was sent flying backward by the irresistible shock wave. He was like an arrow leaving the bow, shooting backward toward the sky. I can't resist at all. You're indeed the one who claims to have killed a god. I'll be back again. Wally only had time to leave this sentence. Then he was carried into the sky by the shock wave, disappearing on the other side of the sky in the blink of an eye. Noah deliberately cancelled the lethality of the attack, and let the wind summoned by the storm incarnation become the most direct impact force, taking away Wally in one wave. Although he didn't know how far Wally would be blown away, the wind acting on Wally would not dissipate without a day and night. Of course, as time passed, the power of the wind acting on Wally's body would become weaker and weaker. Therefore, Noah estimated that in about 3 hours, Wally should be able to resist the storm with his own strength, and then use the teleportation magic formation to come back in one breath. In other words, Wally would not come back for at least 3 hours. Immediately, Noah came to the side of Hayato Issei, who was holding one of his arms, and put his hand on his shoulder. How is it? I'm much better now. Hayato Issei's face was no longer painful, but he still held one of his arms, looking at it with some lingering fear, as if he was looking at something extremely strange. His eyes were full of uncertainty. What the hell is going on? For Hayato Issei, this kind of inexplicable reaction should be very difficult to accept, right? After all, for Hayato Issei, everything is too strange, isn't it? If you don't understand, don't think about it, no matter what, you are safe for now. Noah patted Hayate Issei's shoulder, turned his head and looked at Kimura Yuto. You take Hayate Issei home first, and explain everything to him. Since the White Dragon Emperor has appeared, it's too sad to let this Red Dragon Emperor know nothing. Kimura Yuto nodded heavily, then helped Hayate Issei walk in the direction of Hayate Issei's home. Looking at the figures of Hayate Issei and Kimura Yuto gradually disappear on the other side of the street, Noah suddenly said, "Well, you've been watching for so long, it's time to come out, right?" The tension in the air that was about to dissipate suddenly solidified with Noah's words. However, the whole place was silent and no one was there. In such a situation, Noah just looked at the shade on the side and said lightly, "If you don't come out, you want me to ask you to come out, right?" As soon as his voice fell, two figures suddenly flew out from the shade of the trees at the side. Like monkeys, they nimbly leaped onto a tree. With astonishing jumping power, they jumped into the distance. However, at this moment, a stone burst out from below and caught up with one of the figures. Bang! The stone flew out like a bullet and hit the person's shoulder directly. Ah! With a cry of pain, a figure fell to the ground. Chapter 6:14. Bang! The figure that fell from midair landed heavily on the ground with his back on the ground. After a muffled cry, he hurriedly got up. However, he held his shoulder that was hit by the stone, and a trace of pain appeared on his face. Irina, the other figure that was about to flee, immediately stopped. With a leap, it landed in front of its companion. Its sharp gaze shot towards Noah as it raised a large weapon towards Noah. It was a weapon that was wrapped in bandages. It looked like a giant sword. The one holding the weapon was a tall and voluptuous young girl. She wore a white robe and had a head of short blue hair that reached her shoulders. Her fringe was dyed green. This young girl was holding a weapon that was almost as tall as her body. Her eyes were extremely ferocious, and she looked like a valiant female warrior. As for the person who was hit in the shoulder by the rock, she knelt on the ground with one knee and held her shoulder with one hand. She was also a young girl in her prime. She was also wearing a white robe, and under the white robe was a black tight suit. She had chestnut-colored hair that was tied into two ponytails. She looked very cute, like a cute little sister next door that needed to be protected. She was in stark contrast to the female warrior. Noah was a little surprised to see that the people lying in ambush and waiting for an opportunity were actually such two young ladies. Compared to Noah, the two young girls looked at Noah with vigilance. Irina, the young girl who was holding the greatsword covered in bandages, didn't even turn her head. Perhaps it was because she was worried that she would be ambushed if she turned her head. She stared straight at Noah and spoke softly. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. I was just hit by a rock." Saying this, the young girl called Irina's face still had a trace of pain. She forced a bitter smile. "But it still hurts a little, Genova." "Is that so?" The young girl called Genova's eyes became colder and colder. Her grip on the sword tightened. As expected, a guy who dares to claim to have killed a god wouldn't say such outrageous words if he didn't have the ability to do so. It was right that we didn't come into contact with him directly. Although he didn't know where these two young girls came from, Noah more or less had some guesses. After all, Noah's sharp senses detected a trace of holy aura from the sword in the hands of the young girl called Genova. How could Noah not guess the other party's background when she held a weapon filled with holy aura and said such words to him? People of the church? Noah couldn't help but laugh. His laugh didn't have a trace of emotion. First, there was a nobleman who deserved a beating from the demon camp. Then, there was the white dragon who joined the fallen angel camp. Now it's a member of the church under the angel camp. When did Horse King Academy become so famous that it could attract strange people like you? Hey. If we're talking about strange people, it should be you, right? The young girl called Irina shouted. The demons, the angels, and the fallen angels have always been in a confrontation. It's not strange at all when and where they appear and have conflicts. What's strange is that you, a sinner who inexplicably broke into the three factions, and even dared to call yourself a god slayer. According to what you said, I shouldn't be here. Noah shrugged. But, is it the right thing for a member of the church to hide and peek? We're just avoiding unnecessary conflicts, Genova said coldly. Sinner who calls himself Godslayer. Originally, a heretic like you should be mercifully purified in the name of our Lord. However, our target this time isn't you. If it's possible, I hope you can pretend that you didn't see anything and let us leave. Since you want to leave, why didn't you not come here in the first place? Noah laughed mockingly. You come when you want to come, and you leave when you want to leave. You take the liberty to position others as sinners, and you take the liberty to think that you are the so-called spokesperson of God, who can punish evil and eliminate evil. What you are eliminating is the evil that you think is evil. Do you plan to continue being so self-righteous? With that, Noah lifted his feet and slowly walked forward. Genova and Irina immediately reacted to Noah's actions and retreated step by step as Noah approached them. Initially, I was already very unhappy with the church because of what happened to Isha. Now you've further deepened my hatred for the church. Should I arrest the two of you and bring you directly to the church for an explanation? Although Noah did not use any power, at this very moment, an astonishing pressure indeed surged out from his body, enveloping the entire space around him. Genova and Irina felt as if they were about to suffocate. One of them bit her lips and suppressed the instinctive trembling of her hands as she pointed her greatsword at Noah. The other had a look of fear on her face as she retreated continuously. From the oppressive aura emanating from Noah's body, both Genova and Irina recognized an unshakable fact. Regardless of whether Noah was a godslayer who had killed a god, Genova and Irina definitely wouldn't be able to do anything to him. If they let their impulsiveness and faith in God take over and brandish their swords at this man, then they would have to return to the embrace of the so-called Lord. Therefore, they definitely couldn't attack Noah. Genova, who had calmed down before Irina, took a deep breath and lowered the greatsword in his hand. Although we really want to verify if you've killed a god or if you're just spouting nonsense, it's a pity that we have other missions and can't have a conflict with you here. Other missions? Noah looked at Genova with a faint smile. Since you've come to Chariot King Academy, that so-called other mission wouldn't be to suppress the devils in this academy, right? No, we didn't receive such a mission. Genova shook his head calmly. Although our mission is somewhat related to the devils, before that, we have to negotiate with the pure-blooded devils here. Whether we become enemies or not depends on the outcome of the negotiation. The church is here to negotiate with the devils. Noah's advancing footsteps came to a halt, and the astonishing oppressive aura emanating from his body dissipated bit by bit. Genova and Irina subconsciously let out a sigh of relief at the same time. They had to admit that the aura and pressure emanating from Noah's body was too frightening. Even the elites of the church, Genova and Irina, were so intimidated that they instinctively retreated and trembled. If a normal human stepped into this area and exposed their body to the pressure just now, they would instantly faint and bleed from all orifices. Wouldn't they? Could it be that this man really had the ability to kill a god? You're lucky to have kept your lives. Noah snorted coldly. He suppressed the disgust he had for the people of the church because of Aisha and glanced at Genova and Irina. What's the negotiation you're talking about? You have a close relationship with the devil ruling this town, don't you? Genova did not answer directly. Instead, he asked a question of his own. Then things will be much easier. Can you be the middleman, and let us have a meeting with the demon of this territory, Lias Gimenry? Oh. Noah pursed his lips. The church is here to negotiate with the devil. The only thing I can think of is that they don't come with good intentions. As I said earlier, our mission isn't directly related to the devil, but we do need to negotiate with the devil. Whether or not we'll become enemies will only be decided after that, Genova said in a tone that was neither servile nor overbearing. Even if you don't want to be the middleman, we will still barge into Leah Gimenry's territory and negotiate with her face to face. Very much like the church's style, Noah mocked. Convicting without permission, invading without permission, and acting like it's only natural. So self-centered. How unpleasant. Noah's mockery made Genova and Irina angry, but they did not dare to say anything. On the other hand, Noah was deep in thought. The church's arrival was very unusual. It seemed that there was a need to observe. Chapter 6:15. Kachak. Noah opened the door to his apartment and walked in casually. He seemed to be in a good mood. Behind Noah, the two girls followed Noah into Noah's room with a humiliated look on their faces. If someone else saw this scene from the side, they would definitely have wild and fanciful thoughts. After all, this scene looked too much like the man had grasped the woman's weakness and was planning to force her to do something she was extremely unwilling to do. In fact, this was not entirely wrong, because Genova and Irina were indeed forced by Noah to follow Noah back to his home. Of course, Noah didn't intend to do anything to Genova and Irina. After bringing Genova and Irina into his room, Noah pointed at his messy room and ordered without any trace of politeness, "Then first help me clean up this place. Clean it again." Hearing this, the humiliation on Genova's and Irina's faces became even more intense. Then, the conversation they had half an hour ago at the entrance of FOA King Academy reappeared in the minds of the two girls. What? What did you say? As the sky gradually darkened, Genova and Irina stared at Noah in shock. Then, anger appeared on their faces at the same time. "Are you trying to humiliate a devout believer?" Irina shouted at Noah in disbelief and anger. "Why do we have to become your slaves?" Yes. When Genova and Irina suggested that Noah act as an intermediary for them to negotiate with Laius, Noah, who thought that it was necessary to observe the two girls from the church, made such a request as he rolled his eyes. That was, Genova and Irina had to temporarily become Noah's slaves. They had to listen to Noah's orders and do certain things. This request made Genova and Irina, who were angry with Noah but didn't dare to voice their anger, explode. "First, you call yourself the God Slayer, and blaspheme the God we believe in. Now you want us, the believers of the church, to become your slaves and blaspheme our faith. Is this your goal?" Even Genova, who had been cold all this while, raised his sword at Noah angrily. "We just don't want to have unnecessary conflicts because we have a mission to complete. God Slayer. If you intend to insult us again and again, then even if the mission fails, we will fight you for the faith in our hearts." Oh, Noah raised an eyebrow. His expression did not waver at all. "So, you're saying that you're not willing to pay even a little bit of a price for my help? Ask you for your help?" Genova frowned and immediately reacted. "Are you referring to the matter of us negotiating with Leah Jamanli?" "That's right." Noah spread his hands, a malicious smile on his face. "Since you want me to bring you to Leah and help you, then in exchange, you should listen to my conditions. Or do the people of the church think that as long as they ask, others must cooperate with them and not reject them?" Genova and Irina were speechless. However, after understanding what was going on, Genova regained his composure before Irina did. "All right, if we have to pay such a price for your help, then we'll politely decline." That's right, that's right." Irina nodded repeatedly, her cute face showing a hint of indignation. "Even without your help, we can find Leah Jamanli ourselves and negotiate with her." Upon hearing that, Noah smiled. His smile made Genova and Irina alert again. "You don't know yet, do you?" In the next second, Noah gave them such a message. "The Leah you're looking for is already engaged to me. She's going to be my fiancée." Engagement. Genova and Irina looked at each other in dismay. Even though they were warriors born in a church that had no affinity with love, Genova and Irina still knew what a marriage contract was. However, what was Noah planning to do by bringing up an engagement at this time? "Don't you get it?" Noah reminded them when he saw Genova and Irina looking at each other. "In other words, as the betrothed, this is also my territory. Moreover, my opinion is crucial to Leah. If you intend to reach an agreement with Leah and I object, you'll end up with nothing." Wah! Genova and Irina finally understood what Noah meant. They looked at Noah sharply and angrily. This man was indeed planning to threaten them. Saying that it's a threat is just nonsense. As if he saw through Genova and Irina's thoughts, Noah sneered. "I know that you're from a church that's at odds with the demons, and I still brought you to Leah. Do you really think I'll believe that you're here purely for negotiation? If you're worried that we'll attack Leah Gimli, we can swear an oath to the Lord we believe in." Genova took a deep breath and looked at Noah coldly. "With our faith as a guarantee, you'll believe us, right? Unfortunately, I'm a God Slayer." I don't have any faith in anything. If you want to convince me with that, then you'd better stay where you are," Noah declared with an unquestionable attitude. "In short, if you obey my orders, I'll bring you to Leah tomorrow. Otherwise, you can choose to do what you said just now and barge into the Colt King Academy." At this point, Noah glanced at Genova and Irina. "If you're confident that you can break through my defenses here." Genova and Irina were so angry that they trembled, but there was nothing they could do. In the end, the two girls from the church had no choice but to agree to Noah's request. Under Noah's lead, they moved toward his apartment. Noah had 3 reasons for making such a request. 1. Take the opportunity to observe Genova and Irina, and find out if they have any plans that no one knows about. 2nd, he wanted to avenge Aisha, who was banished by the church. 3rd, he wanted to suppress these 2 aggressive girls who kept calling him a lord of faith. That was why Noah purposely used the term slaves, to humiliate Genova and Irina. As it turned out, Noah's plan was very successful. Moreover, Noah felt that it was not enough. Oh right, Noah took out 2 sets of clothes out of nowhere, and threw them to Genova and Irina. "Put these on and get to work." Genova and Irina were speechless for a long time. This was because the clothes in Genova and Irina's hands did not make the 2 girls want to wear them at all. They were 2 pieces of clothing that looked like dresses. The sleeves and skirt were pleated, and there were cute floral decorations and patterns. There was also an apron-like decoration sewn on the front, with the same fringes, giving off a fluffy and cute feeling. Those were 2 sets of maid's clothes. Genova looked at the maid's clothes in his hands and looked at Irina in confusion. "What kind of clothes are these?" Genova did not recognize the maid's clothes. Irina's pretty face kept changing, and in the end, she let out a big sigh. "Don't ask, Genova. You definitely don't want to know. For our mission, just put them on." "Understood." Genova agreed without hesitation. For Genova, who did not understand the meaning of the maid's clothes, it was just like changing into a set of work clothes. Thus, Genova immediately undid his white robe and took off his tight suit. "That's right. Right here. Right in front of Noah. PFFF." Noah, who glanced coldly at Genova's fair skin and full breasts, spat out the tea in his mouth without leaving a single drop behind. "Genova!" Irina finally realized that Noah was also present. She hurriedly stopped Genova, and with a red face, she pulled the tights back to Genova's stomach. "You can't change here." The whole room was in a mess. Chapter 6:16. Irina, come and help me. After half an hour of work, Genova, who had donned her maid uniform, had asked Irina for help for the umpteenth time. This was because there were simply too many things that Genova did not understand, especially things that were not directly related to battle. He was completely clueless, and would only know how to do them after asking for instructions. Hearing Genova's voice, Irina, who was swiftly sorting out the trash in the trash can, let out a huge sigh and couldn't help but complain. "Genova, shouldn't you increase some of the skills that a girl should have?" Indeed, Genova had a look of agreement on his face, but that was what he said. "Of course, the more skills you have, the better. Who knows when they will come in handy in battle?" "No, that's not why I want you to increase your skills," Irina complained. "I used to think that you don't know anything, Genova. Now I'm even more sure of my guess." "Don't make me sound like an idiot," Genova said with dissatisfaction. "Don't forget, in terms of combat power, I'm above you." Hearing this, Elena became even more helpless. "So don't always consider combat power as your priority, alright?" At the side, Noah, who seemed to be lying on the bed and reading a book, was actually paying attention to Genova and Irina. There was a hint of a bitter smile on his face. After half an hour of observation, Noah almost overturned his understanding of Genova and Irina. When these 2 girls from the church first appeared before Noah, although Noah was rather annoyed by their words of faith and sinners, both of them had the awe-inspiring aura and decisive thinking of a warrior. That was why Noah decided to observe them for a while. Who would have thought that these 2 girls were actually like this in private? Genova was basically an otherworldly, simple-minded, and careless female warrior. He did not seem to have any problems dealing with the basic daily life, and he could quickly grasp the essentials. He was quite sharp when it came to learning, but detailed work was not suitable for Genova. He did not know anything about anything other than battle. Simply put, she was a boorish girl who didn't have much of a brain. Irina's words were very disciplined and didn't lack common sense like Genova, who was simple-minded. However, this girl's words and actions often went off the rails. In the beginning, Noah thought that Irina was like a cute little sister next door. Now, although Irina's cuteness didn't decrease, she no longer gave Noah the feeling of a cute little sister next door. Instead, she was more like a troublesome childhood sweetheart, like Alusha, who sometimes made people feel helpless. Did these two girls really come from the church to carry out a mission? Could it be a joke? Wait. Genova. That's not trash. Don't throw it at me. But it doesn't look like something that can be used as a weapon, right? Do you only have things that can be used as weapons in your room? That's true. But Irina, don't you have a lot of dolls in your room too? Those things should be trash, right? What? How can my little cuties be trash? Those are the comforts that the Lord has given me. Idiot Genova. Wadash. Those who call others idiots are the real idiots. No. You're an idiot. Ah, Lord, why is my partner this kind of person? Is this also a test that the Lord has given me? Wait. Why is it suddenly my fault? Shealuaha. That's why I'm against a new believer like you becoming a warrior. What? Only old-fashioned believers who are bound by outdated rules have problems. What did you say? Damned heretic. You actually called me a heretic? Unforgivable. For no reason. The two believers who were tidying up the room suddenly started arguing. One of them was holding a broom and pointing it at the other like a sword, while the other was holding a trash can, seemingly intending to use it as a shield. They were glaring at each other. Their behavior was completely different from when they were discovered by Noah at the entrance of Chariot King Academy, and when they were confronted by Noah, they would do their best to fight him. It was as if they were two different people. Sigh. Seeing this, Noah sighed. I'm also an idiot for being wary of these two girls. At that moment, Noah threw the book in his hand at Genova and Irina, who were arguing more and more. Noah didn't know what technique Noah used, but the book he threw hit Genova's head and bounced off, landing heavily on Irina's head. The two girls held their heads and squatted down, crying out in pain. Don't slack off, get back to work. Hearing Noah's extremely unkind words, Genova and Irina could only swallow their grievances. One day, I'll definitely cut down a sinner like you who killed a god. You'll definitely be punished by the heavens for treating us followers of God like this. As they nagged, Genova and Irina had tears in their eyes as they continued tidying up the room. At this moment, the sound of the door opening could be heard, followed by the voices of the two girls. We're back. Isha and Kitten walked in, and before they could close the door, their gazes met with Genova and Irina's. In the next 2 to 3 seconds, the four girls fell into silence, causing the entire place to fall silent. Especially Kitten. When she saw the maid uniforms on Genova and Irina, her gem-like eyes turned towards Noah with a look of disdain. How lame. Needless to say, Kitten must have misunderstood something. Unfortunately, Noah was in no mood to explain anything. This was because Genova and Irina were staring at Isha, causing her to timidly take a step back and speak weakly. That. Without waiting for Isha to finish her sentence, Genova spoke. You're Aisha Alzette, the famous witch who can cure demons, right? Aisha shuddered involuntarily upon hearing the word witch, and her eyes widened in shock. You're from the church? The church? Kitten immediately reacted. Her pretty face tensed up, and she took a step forward to protect Isha behind her. As if she had only just noticed Kitten, Irina stared at her for a while before speaking in surprise. You're a demon? Kitten didn't reply. She only stared at Genova and Irina with vigilance in her eyes, as if she would attack at any time. I didn't expect that after betraying your faith, not only did you hide in a place like this, but you've also allied yourself with demons. Genova's cold warrior expression reappeared on his face as he stared straight at Isha. Have you fallen to such an extent? Facing Genova's aggression, Isha didn't know how to respond. For a moment, tears began to well up in her eyes. At this moment, A cold voice sounded in Genova's and Irina's ears. Fallen? This voice caused Genova and Irina, who were being aggressive towards Isha, to feel a chill in their hearts. After discovering that Isha had the ability to cure demons, you were like flies that smelled blood, worshipping her as the so-called saintess to gather the faith of others. When you found out that Isha could cure demons, you demoted her to a witch as if you were afraid of stirring up trouble, and expelled her. She couldn't make any choice on her own, and could only be with the demons. In the end, she became what you call fallen. Noah stood up and looked up at Genova and Irina. He suddenly smiled, and his smile was extremely cold. If this is depravity, then negotiating with the devil for a mission, you so-called believers of God are so filthy that I want to despise you. After saying that, Noah spoke plainly as if he couldn't be bothered to continue arguing with Genova and Irina. I'm tired of playing games with you. Just tell me what you're here for. Genova and Irina looked at each other and bit their lips. There was no other way. Chapter 6:17. In Noah's room, Genova and Irina sat at the small round table in the middle of the room with solemn expressions. Noah sat casually across from Genova and Irina with a teacup in his hand. He gently swirled the teacup and stared at the swirling tea in it. He didn't even want to look at Genova and Irina. Isha and Kitten sat on the bed and whispered to each other. Isha's innocent smile became a little forced, and she let Kitten hold her hand as if she was comforting Isha, who was hurt by Genova and Irina's words. While whispering to Isha, she kept glancing at the two girls from the church with hostility in her eyes. Evidently, Kitten didn't have a good impression of Genova and Irina at all. However, Noah was the one in charge of dealing with Genova and Irina, so Kitten did not intend to interfere. Otherwise, Kitten might have already made her move. Genova and Irina, on the other hand, did not seem to care about Kitten at all. They only stared at Noah with flickering eyes, as if they were considering something. Noah was the only one present who was a threat to Genova and Irina. Yet, this person had developed feelings of disgust towards Genova and Irina, which was not good for Genova and Irina. If they did not have a mission, Genova and Irina would definitely not be so cautious in front of Noah. However, because of the mission, Genova and Irina could only restrain themselves for the time being. Moreover, Noah was the fiancé of the person Genova and Irina intended to negotiate, so the two girls felt that it was not a bad thing to make things clear here. Thus, Genova was the first to speak. First, I have to tell you that our mission has an extraordinary relationship with the Holy Sword. Holy Sword? Noah finally raised his gaze from the teacup in his hand and looked at the huge sword covered in bandages beside Genova. The so-called Holy Sword referred to those holy weapons that contained extremely powerful holy power and could cause great damage to demons and evil monsters of the darkness. It was a weapon that was recorded even in myths and legends. If a demon or monster were to touch this weapon, they would suffer great damage. Once they were hit, it was even more likely that they would be annihilated without leaving a trace. Noah had sensed a strong holy aura from the sword that Genova carried with him, which was covered in bandages. I see. That should be one of the holy swords, right? It's not quite accurate to say that it's one of the holy swords. Genova lifted the sword beside him and untied the bandages. It should be said that this is part of the holy sword. As soon as he finished speaking, a huge sword appeared in front of Noah. It was flashing with an arc of light and had two edges. It was a lot bigger than the average longsword. That's the famous holy sword? Dangerous. Isha's mood seemed to have improved a lot, and most of her attention was attracted by the sword in Genova's hand. Kitten, on the other hand, was like a cat whose fur stood on end. She couldn't help but clench her fists tightly, and her face was unprecedentedly solemn. Kitten's demonic instincts should be constantly warning her master not to touch that sword, right? After all, the holy sword was too dangerous for demons. In the ancient war, one of the holy swords in the hands of the angel faction, called the King's Sword, was damaged and fell apart. Elena explained in a timely manner. At that time, the people who participated in the battle brought back the fragments of the King's Sword, and used the fragments of the King's Sword to forge 7 inferior holy swords. Therefore, The holy swords in our hands now are only a part of the original king's sword. The holy sword in my hand is the holy sword of destruction. Genova hesitated for a moment. Then, perhaps he felt that there was no use in hiding it, so he directly revealed the information of the weapon in his hand. As the name suggests, this holy sword of destruction is a holy sword that can cause great damage. And the holy sword in my hand is the holy sword of mimicry. It has the ability to change into any form. Irina reached out her hand and untied a rope that was tied to her arm. In the next moment, the thin rope circled and suddenly twisted and transformed into a katana. Although it has been split, the 7 holy swords that originated from the king's sword all have their own abilities. Irina proudly raised the katana in her hand. Genova's is destruction, and mine is transformation. To the members of the church, to be able to wield a weapon that contained divine power like the holy sword should be very proud of it, right? Therefore, Genova and Irina more or less had a trace of pride on their faces. However, in the face of the 2 holy weapons that were claimed to be able to completely eliminate demons, Noah only glanced at them and then withdrew his gaze. Although he didn't know how powerful the king's sword was in its complete state, the power of the holy sword of destruction in Genova's hand and the holy sword of mimicry in Irina's hand were only similar to magic weapons and magic attire in Noah's eyes. To the demons that were restrained, these 2 holy swords might be quite threatening, but to Noah, it was too powerless. So, Noah asked casually, "What's wrong with the holy swords?" Genova and Irina put away their pride and put away the holy swords in their hands. Actually, not long ago, 3 of the holy swords kept by the church were snatched away by a fallen angel cadre from the fallen angel camp by the name of Korkabor. Genova stared at Noah, a trace of light flowing in his eyes. Our mission in this town is to take back the 3 holy swords that fell into the hands of the fallen angels. At the very least, we have to destroy them to prevent them from being used by the enemy. Korkabor. Noah's heart skipped a beat as he looked at Genova. You mean that the fallen angel cadre who snatched the holy swords is in this town? Hearing Noah's words, Isha and Kitten, who had not dared to interrupt, were suddenly shocked. The fallen angel cadre is in this town? Is that true? That was a fallen angel cadre, a true high-ranking member of the fallen angels. Without a doubt, he was a high-ranking fallen angel who had participated in the war between the 3 forces and survived. Such a person was actually hiding in this town? Isha and Kitten shuddered at the thought of this. Korkabor has indeed invaded this town. Genova said in a heavy tone. And our ultimate goal in coming here is to take back or destroy the holy swords that fell into the fallen angel camp. So we hope that the demons occupying this town will not interfere in the battle between us and the fallen angels, Irina added. It's for this purpose that we hope to negotiate with Lyeth Gimmenry, who has occupied this town. With that, Genova and Irina turned their gazes to Noah at the same time. So, what do you mean? Genova asked. You're Lyeth Gimmenry's fiancé. If you promise not to interfere in the matter between us and the fallen angels, then Lyeth Gimmenry will agree, right? We don't want it to eventually turn into a chaotic battle between the 3 camps of demons, angels and fallen angels, Irina said. If it turns into another battle between the 3 forces, I believe you don't want to see that either, right? Isha and Kitten, who understood that Genova and Irina were here because of such a big matter, were completely speechless. They could only leave everything to Noah to make the decision. Noah, on the other hand, had his eyes on another problem and raised it. The holy sword should be ineffective against the fallen angels, right? Then why did the fallen angels steal the holy swords? We don't know the other party's purpose. Genova shook his head. But it's a fact that the other party stole the holy swords. Hearing this, Noah's eyes flashed, and he suddenly smiled. I understand your thoughts, but I'm not a demon, and I don't know what Lyeth will think. So let's wait until next time to give an answer. There should be time for that, right? Both Genova and Irina heaved a sigh of relief and nodded. Chapter 6:18. About half an hour later, Genova and Irina left Noah's apartment with their holy swords. Originally, Noah had planned to keep the 2 girls from the church to help him with his work for the entire night. However, Noah was extremely displeased with Genova and Irina's attitude towards Aisha. Keeping these two people who had been poisoned by their faith would only be an eyesore. If it weren't for the fact that Genova and Irina were only speaking rudely and didn't target Isha like Laneri, Noah wouldn't have just chased them out. However, Isha was very concerned about Genova and Irina's words. Even after Genova and Irina were chased out by Noah, she was still a little unhappy. Looking at the sullen look on Isha's face, Noah felt that he had been too lenient with Genova and Irina's punishment. Incidentally, although Noah chased Genova and Irina out, he left their clothes behind. Of course, don't get me wrong. Noah didn't want Genova and Irina to run around naked. However, Noah didn't return Genova and Irina's original clothes to them. Instead, he let them leave in their maid outfits. Presumably, the gazes of onlookers would be very interesting when they saw a pair of maidservants walking on the streets. Not to mention, Genova was also carrying a weapon covered in bandages, which made her appearance even more strange and eye-catching. Also, it should be mentioned that the maid outfits in Noah's apartment were only souvenirs that Kitten took back when she brought Isha out to buy some casual clothes. Now Genova and Irina had benefited from this. After Genova and Irina walked out of Noah's apartment with sullen faces, Noah turned around and looked at Isha, who was sitting on the bed. Over there, Isha's expression was more or less dejected. Seeing this, Noah stood up and walked to the bedside. He extended his hand and patted Isha's head. "What's wrong? Are you still thinking about what those two psychopaths said?" "No, I didn't." Isha wanted to deny it, but when she felt Noah's burning gaze and Kitten's worried gaze, she immediately lowered her head. "I just feel that my faith is still not enough. That's why the Lord doesn't care about me." "Even you are saying that?" Noah frowned. "Listen carefully, Aisha. Although this may be hard for you to accept since you grew up in the church, I feel that sometimes, too much faith is not a good thing." "No, it's not like that." Isha quickly shook her head as if she was trying to persuade Noah. "The Lord is merciful. As long as you sincerely believe in the great Lord, you will definitely receive the Lord's care and blessings." "Then why didn't you receive the blessings of the Lord?" Noah asked without beating around the bush. "Don't tell me that you don't have enough faith. Do you think that I spent all this time with you for nothing? I can tell you clearly that your faith is the most devout among all the believers." Noah curled his lips. "If even your level of faith can't receive the blessings of the so-called Lord, then no one in this world can. Then the so-called Lord doesn't need to exist, and there's no need to believe in him." "Teacher is right." Kitten nodded heavily and said such a dangerous sentence. Useless people have no value in existence, and useless gods don't need to exist. That kind of god should be eliminated by teacher with the power of the God Slayer. Isha didn't seem to expect Kitten to suddenly say such words. She looked at Noah with tears in her eyes. "Are you going to attack the great Lord? Please let the Lord go, okay? The Lord is innocent." Hearing this, both Noah and Kitten were speechless. Isha, who was looking forward to God's salvation, was pleading for the so-called Lord. What was going on? "No matter what, if the faith is too strong, it will make people crazy," Noah said somewhat ruthlessly. "There are many people who think that they can be saved by the Lord without hesitation, do things that are hated by the Lord. There are even people who use the so-called faith as an excuse. They think that as long as they have enough faith, no matter what they do, they can be forgiven by the Lord. Therefore, they don't feel guilty, so they can do bad things without any scruples. Such people also exist, and it is the best proof of faith poisoning." Isha was speechless. As a former holy maiden of the church, how could she not have seen the situation that Noah described? Of course, in general, such people would be condemned by the church as heretics, but could this deny that they didn't have faith in the Lord? Faith is actually similar to beliefs. Some are open and aboveboard, and some are twisted and crazy, but can you say that those are not human beliefs? Noah patted Isha's head again and again. "I don't object to you continuing to offer faith to the so-called Lord, but I definitely don't want to see you become a lunatic with faith poisoning. So Isha, your faith needs to be flexible. You can't blindly pursue it, but it can change as the situation changes. That's true piety." Hearing Noah's words, Isha nodded absent-mindedly and fell into deep thought. Seeing this, Noah rubbed Isha's head lovingly, and then looked at Kitten. Kitten, tell Liaz what the two guys from the church said just now. Also, ask Liaz to tell Tsung that there's a fallen angel cadre hiding here. If something goes wrong, Liaz and Tsung don't pay attention, they'll be in danger. The levels of angels and fallen angels were basically ranked according to the number of wings. The more wings, the higher the level of angels and fallen angels, and generally speaking, the higher their strength. For example, if Laneri only had one pair of wings, she would undoubtedly be ranked at the lowest level in the entire fallen angel camp. She could only be a low-level fallen angel. At the level of a fallen angel cadre, they would have at least 4 to 5 pairs of wings. Whether it was angels or fallen angels, the current highest existence only had 6 pairs of wings. So it was imaginable how powerful a fallen angel cadre was. To put it bluntly, no matter how many superior demons like Liaz and Tsung came, it would not be enough to kill them with one hand. It would not be difficult for her to deal with even the most superior demons. After all, she was a fallen angel who survived the battle with gods and demon kings. Her ability was imaginable. So if they were targeted by a fallen angel cadre without knowing anything, Liaz and Tsung would be in real danger. What about teacher? Kitten looked at Noah, her big watery eyes fixed on Noah's face. Teacher, don't you plan to contact the minister yourself? Me? Noah narrowed his eyes. The people from the two churches said that the holy sword is in the hands of the fallen angel cadre, Korkabor. I'll try to find him. Find him? Kitten was stunned. For someone of Ko-Keber's level, he might be slightly interested in a complete holy sword, but for a few incomplete holy swords, there's no need for that fellow to go out of his way to snatch them from the church. I think that Ko-Keber must have other plans, Noah explained. Plus, of all places, Korkabor came to this town. It's impossible that he didn't have his own considerations. Noah did not mention that it was very likely that Kobold had been attracted by him. Tsung Na once said that an existence like Noah, who had the power to rival the gods and demons, and who also called himself the God Slayer, was too sensitive for the current 3 major forces. All kinds of people with bad intentions would be attracted here, trying to use the God Slayer as a bait to do something. Therefore, Noah felt that it was necessary for him to find Korkabor's whereabouts. Fortunately, Noah already had a way. I'm not allowed to interfere in the battle between the churches and the fallen angels? Recalling Genova and Irina's words, Noah sneered. I'm not allowed just because you say so? Then I'm going to interfere. After leaving the apartment, Noah first looked up at the dark night sky, then closed his eyes. A burst of magic rose from Noah's body. The surging magic turned into golden starlight and condensed into a golden beast. Chapter 6:19. In the dark of the night, the golden beast, whose body hair was as bright as gold and as smooth as a beautiful fluid, was like a small sun that appeared in the moonlit night. It was very dazzling. Wu, the golden wolf Bio, who could defeat the most ancient god slayer in one strike and also cause great damage to the unparalleled Wulin Alliance master in the land of China, had shrunk to the size of an ordinary wolfhound. He was very obedient as he rubbed his head against Noah's leg. He did not look like a peerless ferocious beast at all, which made people lower their guard. However, even though his body had shrunk to this extent, Noah did not provide Bio with much magic power. In this form, Bio could still bite off the neck of a divine beast. If one underestimated this fantasy breed that had completely exceeded the strength of a phantom beast because of its appearance, they would definitely not be able to bear the consequences. Only Noah alone could make this peerless ferocious beast so obedient. I'm sorry. Although it's not in line with your strength to call you out in this situation, you should still help me a little today. Noah squatted down and patted Bio's head, who was very obediently rubbing against him. If it's you, you should be able to find the location of another holy sword with the same divine power based on the aura of the holy sword carried by the two churches' warriors, right? Both Genova and Irina said that Kokbor had taken the 3 holy swords from the church and snuck into this town. Then, as long as they found the location of the holy sword, it was very possible to find Kokbor. Noah wanted to see what this fallen angel officer was planning to do by coming to this town of all places. Currently, Bio was equivalent to one of Noah's clones. Although Bio could not take form without Noah's magic power, as another consciousness that resided in Noah's soul, Bio could naturally know everything that Noah knew. After understanding Noah's meaning, Bio immediately raised his head, twitched his nose, and sniffed the air a few times. Bio was a werewolf. Even though Bio had yet to assume his werewolf form, his sense of smell in his normal wolf form was still very sharp. With the holy aura left in the air by Genova and Irina's holy swords, it wouldn't be difficult for Bio to find the same aura. At least, as long as the target was in this town, with Bio's ability, he should be able to find it. Not long after, Bio suddenly turned his head, and turned his pair of emerald green eyes towards one of the directions. He took a step forward and ran forward. Seeing this, the corners of Noah's mouth curled up. He also lifted his feet and followed behind Bio, chasing after him. In the dark alley, the golden wolf Bio was like a shooting star, leaving behind a trail of golden afterimages in the air as he rushed forward. Not far behind Bio, Noah was also running at a speed that was much faster than an ordinary person. He firmly followed behind Bio and under Bio's lead. They moved towards the direction of the holy swords. If he was at full power, Noah would need to provide Bio with a shocking amount of magic power. He definitely wouldn't be able to do it so easily. But now the amount of magic power that Noah provided to Bio was not much. Although it caused Bio's current power to be greatly reduced, it also increased the duration. With Noah's magic power that was much more illegal than the God-Slayer, this level of loss could be naturally recovered in minutes. So under Bio's lead, Noah ran for about half an hour. Then, within the range of his sensing ability, a holy aura finally appeared. Immediately, Noah's eyes lit up and he increased his speed. At this moment in front of him, a confused and somewhat crazy voice sounded. Why would a golden dog appear in such a place? Hearing this voice, Noah's eyes suddenly froze. Noah had heard such a voice that was always filled with madness. Even if it was only once, Noah remembered it. So, in the next second, the scene that appeared in front of Noah made Noah confirm the accuracy of his memory. What appeared in front of Noah's eyes was a gloomy graveyard of unknown origins. In such a graveyard, Bio leisurely raised one of his front paws and looked at a person in front of him. A person wearing a black priest's outfit, with a head of white hair, was holding a sharp sword that was flowing with holy power, burning like flames in the dark night. Without a doubt, that was the holy sword. However, the person holding the holy sword was not an officer of the fallen angels, but a crazy priest. Noah's footsteps stopped. That was because the moment he saw Noah appear, the crazy priest holding the holy sword suddenly twisted his face, as if he had gone mad, and fiercely pounced towards Noah's direction. At the same time, a shocking murderous aura and the smell of blood were emitted from his body, enveloping Noah's body. In the next moment, a cold sword light flashed, and mercilessly slashed towards Noah's direction. However, at the same time, a golden beastly figure suddenly appeared in front of Noah, and faced the cold sword light head-on. Clang dash. Accompanied by the sound of steel clashing against steel, a burst of sparks burst out, scattering in the air. The holy sword that was always successful, and the body of the sword was still flowing with rich holy power, as if it was burning with flames, but Bio, who suddenly appeared in front of Noah, used his sharp teeth to bite down on the holy sword. The sparks were produced by the friction between the holy sword and the sharp teeth. Bio bit the holy sword tightly, and the pair of gem-like beast eyes that were extremely leisurely just a moment ago surged with an indescribable coldness. He stared ahead, and a fierce glint flashed past from time to time. If it was said that Bio did not put the person in front of him in his eyes just a moment ago, then now, because the other party swung his sword towards Noah, Bio had truly treated him as his prey. Oh, what a great murderous aura! The white-haired priest who was holding the holy sword and slashed towards Noah's direction grinned, sticking out his tongue, and licking the corner of his mouth as if he was enjoying it, and laughed wildly. Yo, you actually raised such a great dog. Your taste is not bad. Can I cut it down? Can I? Noah, who was standing motionlessly behind Bio, first looked at the holy sword, and then frowned. The holy sword is actually in the hands of a disgusting guy like you. What a blunder. If I had known, I would have directly gotten rid of you last time. Disgusting priest. The priest who was holding the holy sword was actually freed. Ma, don't be so cold after that time. I have always wanted to see you. I miss you so much that I almost peed my pants at night, ahahaha. Freed's smile also became twisted and ferocious, and the hand that was holding the sword continued to exert force. In order to take revenge last time, I spent a lot of effort to get this holy sword of heavenly flash from the hands of the boss of the fallen angels in my family. Now, our fate has finally arrived, bastard. I will definitely immediately cut you down. Freed spoke like a lunatic, and the flame-like holy power flowing on the holy sword of heavenly flash in his hand suddenly expanded. Then Freed disappeared. The 7 holy swords that were split from the king's sword all had different abilities. Genova's holy sword of destruction, as its name suggested, was destruction. Irina's holy sword of mimicry, as its name suggested, was transformation. Then the ability of the holy sword of heavenly flash in Freed's hand should be acceleration. With the support of such an ability, Freed seemed to have turned into a dazzling phantom, flashing through the space and making a big circle, as if he was planning to go behind Noah. In this regard, Noah just loosened his frown and said indifferently, "Take him down, Bio." The murderous light in Bio's eyes suddenly intensified. Roar! As if it directly sounded from the horizon, Bio let out a high-pitched roar that seemed to have traveled from the distant ancient times and hovered in this era. His body suddenly turned into a ray of light, flashed out, and directly swept toward the phantom that was planning to go behind Noah. Bang! The dazzling flowing light heavily collided with the flickering phantom, causing a muffled sound. Roar! The roar resounded through the sky. Poochie! In the next moment, a burst of bloody light suddenly appeared in the space. Ah! Freed's screams echoed and didn't calm down for a long time. Chapter 620. Clang! With a crisp sound of landing, the holy sword that was dancing like a windmill in midair fell to the ground and plunged straight into the concrete. The divine power that was burning like a flame on the sword gradually subsided and converged because of the loss of its wielder. Bio, who had transformed back into his wolf form, also fell from the air. His forelimbs landed firmly on the ground. His body hair was still dazzling and there were no bloodstains on it. In Bio's mouth, an arm that was dripping blood on the ground was bitten by his sharp teeth. Undoubtedly, it was such a bloody scene. Because of Bio's head held high and chest puffed out in his dazzling body shape, there was an indescribable beauty. On the other hand, the bloody scene on the other side didn't have the slightest sense of beauty. There was only hell-like misery. Ah! It hurts. It hurts. It really hurts to the point that I peed my pants. In the dark red pool of blood, Fred held his shoulder that was missing an arm. His originally twisted face became even more twisted and ferocious, and he kept rolling on the ground. Even if he suffered such a serious injury, this disgusting priest's performance was still as crazy and inhumane as before. Damn it! Damn it! Holding his broken arm, ignoring the blood that was flowing out from the wound, Fred was like an injured beast. The veins on his forehead bulged, and his face was extremely pale. He screamed at Noah, "I'll chop you to death. I'll definitely chop you to death. I'll chop you rotten." Hearing this, Noah's eyes turned cold. Roar! Bio immediately spat out the arm that was dripping blood from his mouth and fiercely pounced in Fred's direction. Bang! One of Bio's front claws was as heavy as steel. When it landed on Fred's chest, it caused a muffled sound. Poochie! Fred directly spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was pressed to the ground by Bio's front claws, but his expression was still crazy. Damn dog! Even you dare to bully this uncle? This person was completely hopeless. It was said that a crazy person was also a terrifying person, and this sentence was indeed displayed by Fred, because this lunatic would not hesitate to risk his life, including his own life. Therefore, even under such circumstances, Fred still dared to curse at Noah and Bio, but his face was getting paler and paler. There was too much blood. Even a lunatic would not be able to maintain a perfect state under such circumstances. At this time, Noah walked forward and arrived in front of the holy sword. He reached out his hand and placed it on the hilt, pulling the holy sword of heavenly flash out of the ground. No matter which holy sword it was not something that could be used by just anyone. The holy sword was the most effective weapon against demons and magical creatures. It was also the ultimate weapon of the angel faction and its subordinate churches. Those who could use the holy sword, generally, even if they were ordinary humans, would have the strength to rival superior demons. The holy sword of heavenly flash in front of me was only a part of the king's sword. So the person who was able to pick it up wouldn't be able to directly fight against a high-level demon. However, it wasn't something that a normal mid-level demon could compare to. And to use such a holy weapon, one must be able to adapt to the holy sword. Obviously, Noah's physique and strength were against the rules. Therefore, Noah was surprised to find that he could actually use the holy sword of heavenly flash in front of him. The holy flame once again burned from the holy sword, covering the body of the holy sword of heavenly flash. Seeing this scene, Fred, who was tormented by the excruciating pain, almost popped his eyes out of their sockets. Are you serious? Fred's shock made the surprise in Noah's heart gradually dissipate. Holding the burning holy sword, he walked in front of Fred, who was pressed to the ground by Bio, and looked down at him, who was dripping with blood. You got the holy sword from Kokeber, right? The holy sword was snatched from the church by Kokeber, and Fred was a lost exorcist who had defected to the fallen angel. In addition to what Fred had just said, Noah could almost conclude that Fred was working under Kokeber, and had even obtained one of the holy swords from Kokeber. Oh, you want to find my boss? Fred smiled with a pale face. After a while, he stuck out his tongue at Noah. I'm not telling you. Is that so? Noah suddenly smiled, as if he did not expect Fred to tell him the answer directly from the start. In the next second, the holy sword that was burning with holy flames slashed through the air and cut through Fred's other arm. Poochie! Along with the sound of his body being cut off, Fred's other arm flew into the air. Ah! Fred let out a heart-wrenching scream. Both of his arms were separated from his body, and the blood flowing from the wound had completely dyed the ground under him red. Facing this miserable scene, Noah's expression was still calm. Noah did not need to have the slightest bit of pity for a bloodthirsty exorcist like Fred, who did not take human life seriously, and would not care about indiscriminately killing innocent people, because this madman deserved to die. I'll ask again. Noah pointed the holy sword in his hand at Fred. Where is Kokeber? Fred's voice was already extremely weak, but he was still laughing maniacally. If you want to know, kneel down and beg me. As soon as his voice fell, the sword light flashed in the air again. Poochie! It was still the sound of his body being torn apart. Fred's legs flew into the air and fell to the ground beside him, dyeing the ground their red. Fred's screams were completely muted. Only half of his body was left lying in a pool of blood. His eyes rolled up, and blood flowed from the corners of his mouth. This person was no different from a dead person. I didn't expect you to tell me Kokeber's whereabouts directly. Noah glanced at the dying Fred on the ground, who was no different from a corpse. There are 2 other holy swords in Kokeber's hands. As long as I have the holy swords, I can find him. Hearing Noah's words, Fred, who was lying in a pool of blood like a human stick, forced a mocking smile on his face. He looked extremely ugly and weak. The holy swords are not with boss at all. You will find them in vain. Idiot! That's not something you should be concerned about. Noah smiled faintly. I heard that hell in the underworld is now jointly ruled by devils and fallen angels. Although the hell where the souls of the dead who have committed the most heinous crimes are stored is lower in the underworld. If you're lucky, you might be able to meet the people in the fallen angel camp who you have turned to. After saying that, Noah sneered. Let me send you on a one-day trip to hell for free. As soon as he finished speaking, the sword light flashed. A bloody head rolled in front of a tombstone. His eyes were wide open as he looked at the cross on the tombstone. The last emotion in his eyes was the desire to live. It looked like Fred was praying to God, hoping to be saved. It was quite ironic. After all, this person not only betrayed God and the church, but also had no faith in his heart. At the last moment of his death, he actually prayed to God for salvation. This person's life was ridiculous and meaningless. Shaking off the bloodstains on the holy sword, Noah turned his back. Bio, take care of it. If ordinary people see this scene, it will be troublesome. Bio, who was on standby, immediately raised his head and leaped into the air. Bio, who had leapt into the air, exploded into a sea of flames that sprinkled over the entire cemetery. However, it didn't burn anything in the cemetery. Instead, it only burned away Fred's broken limbs and horrifying bloodstains on the ground, leaving no trace behind. Walking out of the cemetery, Noah stared at the holy sword in front of him and sighed. Looks like there's no way to find Kokbor by finding the holy sword. Although it was like this, it was still a gain to be able to get rid of a disgusting priest tonight. Immediately, Noah left the cemetery and walked in the direction of the apartment. Chapter 6:21. It was not until the wee hours of the morning that Noah returned to his apartment. Opening the door, Noah saw a room without a trace of light, which told Noah that his other two roommates had fallen into a deep sleep. Under such circumstances, Noah deliberately slowed down his movements and gently closed the door. Then he entered his room and leaned the holy sword of heavenly flash against the wall. At this time, the sound of breathing became a little hurried. Noah was startled at first, but then he remembered. For demons, the holy sword was a terrible natural enemy. Noah entered the room with the holy sword. The powerful holy aura on the holy sword could not have not stimulated the demon living here. So Noah turned around and looked in the direction of the bed, scratching his face apologetically. Sorry, did I wake you up? Kitten, who was wearing pajamas with cute cat prints, gently shook her head. Her eyes were fixed on the holy sword of heavenly flash. After a while, she turned her head and looked at Noah, her eyes full of confusion. Obviously, Kitten was wondering why Noah had this holy sword in his hands. Didn't Noah go out to find Korkabor? Could it be that Noah found Korkabor and snatched the holy sword from him? I didn't find Korkabor. I only found a guy who worked under Korkabor. Noah seemed to have seen through Kitten's thoughts and briefly explained the situation. I got the holy sword from that guy. Kitten nodded her head in relief, but her gaze still frequently shifted in the direction of the holy sword. What an annoying feeling. Well, no matter what, it's still a holy sword. Although it's useless to me, there's no reason to lose it and bring it back just like that. Noah came to the bedside and sat on the edge of the bed. He lowered his head and looked at Isha, who was sleeping soundly with a smile on her face. He could not help but smile as well. Looks like Aisha's mood has improved a lot. The kitten nodded gently and spat out these words succinctly. Those two people from the church said some terrible things to Senior Aisha. I know. Noah reached out and stroked Aisha's hair lovingly. Everyone has one or two unbearable pasts. Aisha's is just a little thicker. This sentence, Noah said completely from the heart. Upon hearing Noah's words, Kitten's pair of beautiful eyes that sparkled like a real cat in the dark night flashed with complicated emotions. Does teacher also have an unbearable past? Hearing this, Noah immediately recalled the time when he was just adopted by Makarov. At that time, Noah did not know where he came from, nor did he know what kind of existence he was. He did not even understand the language, nor did he have any memories. He was completely at a loss and blank. For Noah, who had a mature consciousness, that was hell. It was as if he was in a nightmare and could not wake up no matter how hard he tried. It was very uncomfortable. At that time, Noah only had endless confusion and emptiness. Later, after learning the language and becoming Makarov's adopted grandson, Noah, like Lax's, was looked at with prejudice by the people around him. So, the confusion and emptiness faded away, and were replaced by uneasiness about the surroundings. That period of time was the most unbearable for Noah, right? Even Alusha could not bear to mention it. She felt that it was an unimaginable past. Everyone has it. Noah smiled bitterly. Aren't you the same? Kitten suddenly fell silent, and the look in her eyes became even more complicated. Noah, who clearly saw the emotions in Kitten's eyes, suddenly changed the topic of the conversation. But it's always in the past. It's not worth mentioning now. Kitten was stunned, and then frowned deeply, as if she did not agree with Noah's words. Could it be that teachers' past can be so easily abandoned? In the face of Kitten's questioning words, Noah nodded without hesitation. Of course, I now have reliable friends, a family that loves me, and a loved one. In such a happy situation, I can even let go of the past that I can't bear to look back on. Kitten's frown deepened, and the gaze she looked at Noah became more and more disapproving. Because you are happy now, you can forget the sad past? That's just escaping. Even if you don't forget the sad past at this time of happiness, when others want you to be happy, you bear the pain alone. Do you think this is not escaping? Noah looked at Kitten with a faint smile. No matter if you are happy or in pain now, as long as you don't face it, it is already escaping. I can face it calmly, so I can give it up. No matter how much pain you feel, if you don't face it, you can only bear it forever. Kitten was suddenly speechless. Don't be too hard on yourself. Noah withdrew the smile on his face, sighed, touched Kitten's head, and said softly, no matter what kind of past you have, it's up to you to choose to face it or escape. But if the people around you want you to be happy, then you have the obligation to be happy. Kitten, if you can't give it up, then don't give it up, but don't bear it alone. Don't forget the people around you who care about you. After that, Noah's hand that was stroking Kitten's head slowly moved down and began to stroke Kitten's smooth and cute face. Such a cute face. It would be a pity if it was always so heavy. Only then did Kitten wake up. Seeing Noah's face that was extremely close to her, and feeling the warm hand caressing her cheeks, her pretty face couldn't help but blush. Obscene teacher. Anyway, I am an obscene teacher who has 3 fiancés. Noah smiled teasingly. How about Kitten, when you grow up, you can marry me. As soon as this sentence was said, Kitten immediately answered. No. Your quick rejection makes me very sad, okay? Noah, who was facing Kitten with a joking attitude, was also speechless. At least hesitate a bit. No. Kitten slapped away Noah's hand that was stroking her cheek, and looked at Noah with half-closed eyes. I won't marry an obscene teacher who has 3 fiancés. Being rejected by Kitten so unceremoniously, Noah could not help but feel a burst of anger in his heart, and the hand that was slapped away by Kitten immediately went back to her cheek. However, before the Kitten could slap his hand away, Noah's hand that was caressing the Kitten's cheek turned to pinch the Kitten's chin, and lifted the Kitten's face to face him. You are Leah's dependent, and Leah's is my fiancé, which means you are my servant. Do you think you can still escape? Noah said with a smile before Kitten had a chance to react. Why don't I put my mark on your body first? With that, Noah quickly lowered his head and kissed Kitten's lips heavily. Kitten's eyes widened to the widest they had ever been. After a while, Kitten finally reacted. She raised her small fists and punched Noah's chest repeatedly. As a rook, with super high attack power and super high defense power, Kitten's monstrous strength was very astonishing. Even if it couldn't be compared to Noah's giant incarnation, it could still smash a rock taller than a person with a single punch, not to mention hitting a mortal body. However, Kitten was not able to use her monstrous strength at all. Her small fists, which were supposed to be extremely frightening, landed on Noah's chest, but they were just like those of a normal girl, soft and without any strength at all. With that, it naturally opened a door of convenience for Noah. He simply held Kitten's petite body in his arms and tasted Kitten's lips. Kitten's small fists on Noah's chest became weaker and weaker. In the end, Kitten just put her hands on Noah's chest and closed her eyes unconsciously. She was unknowingly brought into Noah's rhythm. Noah, who only wanted to tease Kitten, was also immersed in it. It was not until a very long time later that the two's lips finally parted. Ha! In the end, Kitten seemed to have heaved a sigh of relief. It was also as if all the breathing that she had been lacking up until now had all returned at once. She fell down and actually fell asleep. This made Noah more or less not know whether to laugh or cry. She fell asleep from exhaustion after a kiss? This was also considered a realm. Chapter 622. Just like that, the night passed. The next day, Noah woke up surrounded by a faint fragrance. As soon as he woke up, Noah clearly felt the faint fragrance that kept drilling into the tip of his nose, making the last trace of confusion in Noah's head disappear completely. He quickly lowered his head and looked at his surroundings. Then, Noah found that he was sleeping on his own bed after a long time. On Noah's left, Aisha tightly hugged Noah's neck with a reassuring smile on her face. On Noah's right, the kitten was like a cute kitten that had completely shrunk into Noah's arms. She subconsciously rubbed against Noah's chest while sleep-talking. Obscene teacher. Hearing the kitten slandering him in her dreams, Noah smiled bitterly, but his eyes involuntarily followed the memory of last night and moved to the kitten's soft lips in her sleep. Last night, Noah just wanted to tease the kitten that hit the nail on the head, so he took away the kitten's kiss. For Noah, the act of kissing, in fact, could only be regarded as an act of intimacy. After all, in addition to his two delicious fiancées, Mira and Lisanna, Noah had kissed a lot of girls. In the world of Night of the Sorcerer, Noah kissed Ayoko and Yuju. In the world of Godslayer, Noah also kissed Alice, Erica, Liliana, and even the god of disobedience, Athena. In addition, in the world of the Black Bullet, he also had some delightful accidents with Mugung. In the world of Absolute Dual Blades, he even slept with Lilith and Julie. Under various accidents, he also had some delightful accidents with Ivan, so Noah's resistance to women was no longer as low as before. Of course, the disadvantage of this was that Noah was also accustomed to overly intimate behavior. Therefore, Noah did not hesitate to snatch Kitten's lips away. Later on, whether it was Noah or Kitten, they completely abandoned all unnecessary emotions and became intoxicated in it. Even Noah himself didn't know how long that kiss lasted. Noah only knew that from the initial resistance to the adaptation, Kitten gradually transitioned from the initial inexperience to the proficiency. By the time their lips parted, the kitten was so tired that she lay down and fell asleep. Because he was tightly entangled with the kitten, Noah also laid down and fell asleep in a daze. In the end, when he woke up, he naturally became like this. Isha probably thought that Noah was a kitten or a pillow. That was why she kept pestering him. Kitten, on the other hand, was entangled with Noah. As a result, such a scene appeared. Seems like he did something terrible when he was throwing a tantrum. The bitter smile on Noah's face became more and more obvious. He wanted to get up, but because Isha and Kitten were tightly entangled, he couldn't get away. Noah had no choice but to wake Isha and Kitten up. Isha, Kitten, get up, it's dawn. Oh, under Noah's shaking, Isha and the kitten subconsciously let out a moan. Then they blinked their lovely eyelids at the same time and opened their dazed eyes. Naturally, in such a close situation, the first thing that Isha and Kitten saw when they opened their eyes was Noah's face. At that moment, Isha and Kitten both crashed at the same time. Isha continued to blink her eyes, seeming to be confused from sleep. After a while, she raised a lovely smile and rubbed her eyelids. Good morning, Teacher Noah. Compared to Isha, Kitten's performance was much more intense. After waking up and seeing Noah's face, Kitten's memory of last night all suddenly came back. Her pretty face quickly blushed, and she bit her lips. You dirty teacher. After saying that, Kitten didn't hesitate to swing her delicate iron fist and mercilessly punch towards Noah's face. With this attack, Kitten finally found her monstrous strength. With a heavy force that made a slight wind sound, she swung her fist heavily towards Noah's face. Although Noah was a god-slayer, the special characteristics of a god-slayer were all in the body: curse power and instinct. In terms of the body, it only made the bones harder, but it didn't increase the strength by much. Therefore, if Noah didn't use his authority and took the punch of Kitten's monstrous strength with his body, he wouldn't die, but he would definitely lie on the ground and couldn't get up for a long time. Noah could only quickly turn his head. Whoosh! The heavy force of the delicate iron fist brushed past Noah's cheek and swung behind him. The sharp oppressive wind even pierced Noah's cheeks and ears, making Noah's heart tremble. Kitten, are you trying to kill me? Kitten fiercely stared at Noah. Eliminate the female public enemy. How am I the female public enemy? Noah said speechlessly. I'm just a... Before Noah could finish his sentence, he was covered by Kitten, who still had a slight blush on her face. Don't say it. Isha finally woke up from Noah and Kitten's banter. She found herself wrapped around Noah's body like an octopus. Her cute face blushed and she quickly let go. She hugged the pillow and buried her face with a shy expression. If If you want to sleep with us, you can tell us. Why did you come up here by yourself? I'm not mentally prepared yet. Senior Isha, you can't compromise so easily. Kitten nimbly climbed up from Noah's body. Her big watery eyes stared at Noah motionlessly, as if she wanted to use her gaze to poke a hole in Noah's body. This person is a big pervert, you can't be careless. Isha was shocked and then looked at Noah with tears in her eyes. Is teacher a big pervert? Noah wanted to refute, but when he remembered that he was indeed lying on the bed by himself, he couldn't find the words to refute. He could only cover his face. Okay, it's all my fault. I'm guilty, I'll leave, okay? No, teacher didn't do anything wrong, he just didn't tell us in advance. Isha smiled shyly. Next time, let's all sleep together. Upon hearing this, Noah looked at Aisha in a daze and asked out of reflex. Can we? Of course. Isha nodded heavily, then looked at Kitten. Kitten thinks so too, right? However, Kitten didn't give Isha any face at all and shook her head without hesitation. Of course not. Isha lowered her head as if she was suddenly hit by a blow. How could this be? Seeing this, Noah found it funny. He got up and patted Isha and Kitten's heads. Okay, it's time to get up, everyone get ready for school. Yes. Isha responded energetically. Even Kitten nodded gently. Together with Noah and Isha, they began to wash up. Since they woke up early, there weren't many people on Academy Avenue when Noah, Isha, and Kitten arrived at Komodo Academy together. It was a rare quiet morning for Noah and the others. However, to Noah's surprise, Liaz and Jurai Himejima were waiting for them at the school gates. Aisha was the first to notice Liaz and Jurai Himejima. It's sister Liaz and sister Jurai. Sisters? Since when did you have two demons as your sisters? Noah wanted to ask, but was interrupted by Liaz and Jurai Himejima who came up to them. Good morning. Jurai Himejima, who smelled like Yamato Natajima, greeted them politely. Sensei Noah, Aisha, and Kita-chan. You're early today. Good morning. Noah, Aisha, and Kitten greeted them as well. After everyone was done with their small talk, Leah cut to the chase. Kitten has told me the details. Liaz turned her eyes to Noah. What do you plan to do? All the girls, including Isha and Kitten, turned to Noah at once, as if wanting to hear Noah's opinion. Noah had become the leader of the group. Chapter 623. Let me make this clear first. I don't intend to get involved. Before Noah could give his answer, Leah spoke her mind first. The holy sword is absolutely harmful to us demons. No demon would want to get their hands on a holy weapon that will cause a certain amount of damage just by touching it. Not to mention the fact that the angel faction and the fallen angel faction are still fighting over it. If I get involved, it will develop into a problem between the demons, the angels, and the fallen angel faction. That's not what I want to see. Apart from some truly twisted people, no one would want to see the arrival of war. That was because every war would only mean huge casualties. The three factions had suffered great losses due to the war in the past, and had yet to recover until now. They had fallen to the point where they could not survive without relying on humans. Therefore, Leah would never allow herself to get involved in an incident that would bring losses to the demon faction again. To put it simply, instead of getting involved, Leah chose to watch from the sidelines. To put it nicely, Leah wanted to give enough face to the angel faction and the fallen angel faction. To put it bluntly, Leah just felt that it had nothing to do with her and could not be bothered with it. Even if the battle for the holy sword between the angel faction and the fallen angel faction happened in her territory, Leah would still choose to watch from the sidelines. After all, if she got involved, not only would there be no benefits, but it would also cause all kinds of problems. As the next head of one of the pure-blooded demon families left in the demon faction, Leah's consideration was understandable. Of course, I also hope that you don't get involved. Leah met Noah's gaze and looked straight at it. Although you are a human, now that everyone knows that you are my fiancé, everyone will classify you as a member of the demon faction. If you get involved without permission, it will also cause the demon faction to be involved. Hearing that, Noah frowned. Regarding the engagement between Noah and Leah, as long as one knew about it, no one would take it seriously, including Noah and Leah herself. Noah had said before that the reason he didn't reject the engagement with Laius was because he was the one who suggested it when he made the bet with Riser. With so many demon nobles as witnesses, if Noah still refused to marry Leah after winning the duel, not only would it cause serious problems for Leah, but it would also directly declare that the bet was invalid. When the time came, the Phoenix family could use this as an excuse to make Laius fall back into Rizel's clutches. With this in mind, Noah decided to delay it for the time being. That was what Leah herself thought. She kept saying that she was engaged to Noah, but with Rizel as an example, how could she really agree to marry Noah under the arrangement of her family? All she wanted was to marry the man she loved. How long had it been since Noah met Leah? It hadn't even been a month, had it? Moreover, the two had only interacted with each other a few times, such as consulting and heart-to-heart talks about life. If Leah was so dead set on Noah, it would be too easy to win her heart. With such considerations, both Noah and Leah chose to delay it for the time being, and when the limelight died down, there would be as many ways to make the engagement fall through. In other words, even though they kept talking about the engagement, neither Noah nor Leah really took it seriously. It was also because of this that Song Na felt that it was too early to talk about Noah and Leah's engagement. Basically, no one else really cared about this issue because of this reason. Anyone who really thought that Noah and Leah would get married just like that was either someone who didn't know the inside story at all, or a stupid onlooker. Of course, it was impossible for Sazax not to understand this problem, but he also chose to stand by and watch, because the two of them couldn't get married in this situation. What if there was still development in the future? So no one would know what would happen in the future. At least, for now, among those who knew, no one really thought that Noah and Leah would get married just like that. To be honest, the people who could be said to be Noah's love were Mira, Lisanna, and half of the Holy Son who made a 3-year promise with Noah in another world. And when it came to people who were close to him, there were many, and almost every world had them. Whether or not he could develop the so-called love with those girls would depend on the future. After all, there were quite a few girls who had a little physical contact with Noah, but it would be too much of a stretch to say that it was love or liking. That didn't mean anything at all. All in all, the development in the future would depend on the future. Currently, the only ones who were really related to Noah were Mira and Lisanna in another world. This was an undeniable fact. However, in the eyes of others, this was certainly not the case, because the engagement between Noah and Leah was real. No matter how it would develop in the future, it existed now. This was enough for everyone to classify Noah as a member of the demon faction. Even if Noah himself didn't think so, others would think so. This was uncontrollable. In this regard, Noah only wanted to say, "What others think has nothing to do with me." Everyone present was stunned and couldn't react. I'll decide if I want to get involved or not. I won't be restrained by some messy things, Noah said without turning back as he walked past Leah's and continued to walk forward. Besides, if the demon faction gets involved because of my problem, then with the way those so-called higher-ups do things, they will definitely let the Gimli family immediately cancel the engagement between you and me and kick me out. That would be a good thing for us, wouldn't it? Noah had long been used to similar methods. This was the way the so-called high-ranking officials did things. That was why Noah did not have the slightest doubt that if something happened to the demon camp because of him, the demon camp would definitely cancel the engagement between Noah and Laius and cast him off cleanly. There was no need to worry about this at all. Leah, who came to her senses, quickly led the girls to catch up with Noah. In other words, do you plan to intervene? Let's talk about this question after we figure out why Kobold chose to sneak into this town. Noah sighed. So, before I find Korkabor, the angel camp and the fallen angel camp can mess around as much as they want. Well, although I already have a holy sword in my hands, those people will still find me sooner or later. In response, Riaz seemed to have something else to say, but after opening her mouth and hesitating for a moment, that was all that came out of her mouth. Then I hope you don't let Yuda know about this, especially the holy sword. It's best if he doesn't see it. Noah suddenly asked in confusion. Why, That child has suffered a lot because of the holy sword. If he knows that the holy sword is in this town, I really don't know what he will do. Leah shook her head. Anyway, I plan to let you to stay by Huta Issei's side to protect him. No matter what, I won't let him get involved in the holy sword incident. Is that so? Noah nodded. I understand. I'll be careful. At this moment, the ground suddenly began to shake slightly for no reason, and it became more and more violent. In the end, the entire ground shook as if there was an earthquake. Leah, Junai, Kitten, Aisha, and the girls were all shocked. What's going on? An earthquake. Around them, the students of Komodo Academy who were also walking on Academy Avenue also panicked, and it was a mess. Noah, on the other hand, suddenly turned his head and looked in one direction after a flash of light in his eyes. Thud. In the next second, one of the rooms in the corner of the building that Noah was looking at seemed to have exploded, setting off a burst of fire that blew away the windows and walls. The students all cried out in shock. As for Leah, her expression had changed drastically. Even Noah's eyes suddenly focused. That was because that direction was where the student council was located. Everyone's hearts were in their mouths at once. Chapter 624. Everyone, go back to your classrooms. Don't run around the corridors. Don't panic. Go back to your classrooms. In the school building of Chariot King Academy, a group of teachers seemed to have received instructions from someone. They calmed down the students who had already arrived at Chariot King Academy, but had fallen into a state of panic due to the explosion at the student union. They arranged everything in an orderly manner. As the situation gradually stabilized, Noah, Leah's, Juno, Kitten, and Aisha ignored the teacher's instructions and rushed into the school building, sprinting toward the student union. It didn't take long for a room whose door had been blown away to appear before Noah and the others. The interior of the room seemed to have been ravaged by a fire. Not only were there glass shards and broken pieces of equipment everywhere, but the surrounding walls were also stained with scorch marks. Kana, Leah's, was the first to rush into the student union, and saw it immediately. On the ground of the student union, blackened bodies were strewn all over the place. They were all members of the student union. Just like how the members of the Supernatural Research Department were all Leah's kin, the members of the student union were all Kana's kin. In other words, the people lying on the ground were all demons. If it was a simple explosion, the demons would never be so severely injured and collectively lose consciousness. In other words, the explosion was definitely not as simple as a normal one. In fact, Noah did sense a trace of power residue in the air. It was the power of light that came from angels and fallen angels. Kana. Leah's looked around anxiously but did not see Kana's figure. Aisha. Noah pressed down on her shoulder. Heal them first. Yes. Isha, who was shocked by the scene in front of her, quickly came back to her senses. She quickly entered the room and squatted in front of the person closest to her. A pair of rings flashed on her fingers, covering her palms with a layer of soft green light. She began to treat the wounded. Kitten. Noah stared at the scene in front of him. Seeing that Leah's had lost her sense of propriety, he could only give orders for her. Please keep watch outside and don't let anyone come in. Understood. Both Jurai Himashima and Kitten nodded. They turned around and guarded the entrance of the student council office. Then, Noah walked into the student union. After looking around at the people on the ground, his eyes fixed on one of them. Almost at the same time, Leah noticed the person as well. She crouched down and picked him up. Zhuangji, wake up. Gu. The Zhenlua Zhuangji groaned in pain. She seemed to have regained some of her consciousness, and she slowly opened her eyes. Lady, Lias, what's going on? She asked anxiously. Where is Tsang Na? We were attacked. Zhuangji's face was filled with pain, but she resisted the pain in her body and spat out these words with difficulty. The culprit is an officer of the fallen angel. The president was taken away by him. After saying that, Zhuangji's head tilted and she lost consciousness. Zhuangji. Leah was shocked. She's fine. She's just unconscious. Noah crouched down and checked Zhuangji's breathing. Everyone here, including the vice president, is just unconscious. It's not a big deal. Aisha can heal them all. It was only then that she breathed a sigh of relief and gritted her teeth. The fallen angel. It seems that unlike the people from the church, the fallen angel wants to drag the demons into this dispute. Noah stood up and smiled sarcastically. Attacking the family of the next head of the Seedy family. And even taking the next head of the Seedy family away. Liaz, if this matter were to spread to the demons, I don't think this matter will be settled peacefully, right? What is the fallen angel thinking? Leah's expression became uncertain. Not only did they attack the church, but they also took away the holy sword and Song Na. Do they really want to start a war between the three forces again? Judging from what they're doing now, they really want to start a war between the three forces. Noah came to the side of the wall and looked up. Look, didn't they openly reveal their location? Leah was stunned. Then she finally found it. On one of the walls of the student union office, there was a line of words written in blood. I've taken away Tsang Sidi. If you want him, come to the abandoned church in the outskirts. There was no doubt that this was an invitation letter. It could also be said that it was a letter of challenge. From the start, the other party had never thought of covering up his actions. Leah trembled as she looked at the line of words on the wall. Her delicate face became extremely terrifying. Even her body was surging with red magic power. Korkabor. There was no need to think about who left this line of words. Song Na was a superior demon. However, when Song Na brought his kin, not only were they all wiped out, but their superior demon was also taken away by the other party. To be able to do this, other than people at the level of the fallen angel cadres, who else could it be? After all, Noah and his party were not far from Chariot King Academy. Under such circumstances, if they were to attack a team of superior demons, Noah would discover the commotion as long as they were entangled for a while. In the end, even Noah only noticed it after the other party's attack was successful. It was conceivable that the other party must have wiped out Sidi's kin in an extremely short period of time before taking Song Na away. Therefore, it went without saying that the person who did this could only be Kokbor. What do we do now? Noah glanced at Leah. The other party is obviously looking for trouble with the angel and demon factions in this town. They took the holy sword and Song Na away. Conflict is unavoidable. I know. Leah's voice was terrifyingly low. Since things have developed to this point, we can only save Song. So, we are falling into the other party's trap. Noah shrugged and turned to look at Aisha. Aisha, you stay here and treat the people from the student council. Yes. Aisha nodded heavily. She then focused on the treatment. Then Noah turned around. I'll leave this to Aisha. Let's go meet Korkabor. Leah nodded silently. The sky outside the window began to darken, shrouded by a layer of gray clouds. It was as if the calm before the storm. There was an abandoned church on the outskirts of the town. The surroundings of the church were densely packed with trees. Because of the terrain, almost no one in the town would come here to pray. Over time, the church closed down. It could be said that fallen angels would often set their sights on this type of defunct church. As angels in the past, many of them held grudges against the gods they served in the past after they fell. Therefore, seeing a church under the management of a god go bankrupt was undoubtedly what the fallen angels liked the most. It was not strange for them to choose this place as their shelter. After leaving Aisha at Kuma Academy, Noah, Lias, Junai Himejima, and Kitten arrived at the academy. As soon as they saw the abandoned church in the middle of the forest, two figures appeared in front of Noah and the others. In an instant, the two groups of people looked at each other with a stunned expression. Ryaz and Jurai Himeshima looked at each other in dismay. Maids. Yes. Two maids appeared in front of Noah and the others. To be more precise, they were two sword saints of the church dressed in maid uniforms. They were Genova and Irina. Noah and the kitten looked at each other when they saw the weird looks on Leah's and Jurai Himeshima's faces. They both saw a smile in each other's eyes. Genova and Irina, on the other hand, glared at Noah with a face full of humiliation. Genova and Irina had seen Leah's and Jurai Himeshima's reactions many times over the course of the day. Naturally, Genova and Irina wanted to cut Noah into pieces for putting them in such a situation. However, both of them admitted that they were no match for Noah. Thus, they could only display such a humiliating performance. Seeing this, Noah wanted to say, "You deserve it. You deserve it." Chapter 6:25. You. Why are you here? As if he was deliberately hiding the humiliation in his heart, Genova stared at Noah with a sharp gaze. If I remember correctly, you promised us last night that you would tell Lias Jamanli about our conversation, right? You said it yourself. It's just a message. I can't control what decision Lias will make in the end. Noah curled his lips into a smile. However, since you asked me this question, it means that your purpose is the same as ours. You're all here for the fallen angel, right? In other words, you're also here for the fallen angel. Irina looked around at Noah, Lias, Jurai Himashima, and Kitten. She seemed to be in a bad mood. In the end, the demons are still involved. If the higher-ups know about this, our evaluation will definitely drop a lot, won't it? So, Sword Saints of the Church, you are here to retrieve the sacred sword, am I right? Leah stepped forward, crossing her arms and looking at Genova and Irina with an awe-inspiring air. I am Lias Jamanli. We know. It's just as the information said. You have the same red hair as your brother, the great demon king Lucifer. We recognized you from the beginning, Genova said coldly. Lias Jamanli, do you also want to participate in the fight for the holy sword? Hearing Genova's unfriendly words, Lias raised an eyebrow. You look like you have something to say. It's okay, just say it. We've already said that we don't want the demons to interfere in the fight for the holy sword. Genova's face was calm in the face of Lias' question. To the demons, the holy sword is a huge threat. Even if they can't get it, it's also a good thing if the holy sword disappears in the angels' camp. At least it can reduce the threat when the demons and angels clash. Genova's words had a hidden meaning behind them, and Leah's expression turned a little cold. I've said it just now. If you have something to say, just say it. There's no need to be so secretive. All right, then we'll get straight to the point, Genova said bluntly. The higher-ups of the church, including me, all feel that in order to remove the holy sword from the angel camp, you might be colluding with the fallen angels. So, if you want to participate in our matters, then even if you are the sister of the demon king, we will destroy you. Those words infuriated Leah's right away. Noah, on the other hand, was not surprised by this at all. There was no telling if this Genova was really stupid or just too arrogant. He was always so boastful and self-centered when he was talking to Isha or Lias. To be able to accuse Aisha of associating with demons in front of Noah, and to be able to speak bluntly about eradicating Leah's in front of her, this person either had some trump card that allowed her to not show weakness even when facing a superior demon, or she was just an idiot and a lunatic. Intuition told Noah that it should be the former. Other than the holy sword of destruction, Genova must have other trump cards that allowed him to declare that he would destroy a superior demon like Lias. It was precisely because of this that Irina wouldn't choose to interrupt and follow Genova's lead. Obviously, the church's trump card this time was in Genova's hands. Genova felt that with that trump card, he could win even against a superior demon like Lias. That was why he was so arrogant. On the contrary, because he was not sure if he could defeat Noah even if he used that trump card, Genova would choose to back down when facing Noah no matter how aggrieved he was. That was all there was to it. There was no telling if she had thought of the same thing as Noah. She suppressed the anger in her heart and spoke coldly. I will never collude with the fallen angels. I'm only here because my friend, the next head of the Sidi family, Kana Sidi, was captured by Korkabor. The officers of the fallen angels captured Kana Sidi? Genova was finally shocked. What is that Korkabor doing? Irina asked in disbelief. He went to the church to steal the holy sword and captured Kana Sidi. Is he planning to start a war between the three factions? Coincidentally, we have the same question. Lias looked up at the abandoned church in front of her. That's why we're here. Genova and Irina were speechless. If Lias had gotten involved because of the holy sword, then both Genova and Irina would have attacked her. However, if she was here to save the next head of the Seedy family, then the problem was different. After all, if Laius had come here for the Holy Sword, then Genova and Irina could attack her. After that, the church could stand in the limelight in the name of justice. However, if Genova and Irina still tried to stop her to save Kana, then it would probably anger the demon camp and cause the church to be condemned. That was to say, this was just a matter of having a good reason. Korkobor clearly wants to involve the three factions in his dispute, and he doesn't care about the problem of causing a war between the three factions. It's useless for you to continue arguing here, Noah interjected casually from the side. Instead of worrying about the what-ifs, you should worry about how to deal with Korkobor. Whether you want to take back the Holy Sword or Kana, you have to go through Korkobor first. He's an officer of the fallen angels, and he's not someone you little girls can deal with. You don't even understand this and are discussing the what-ifs here. You're so stupid. That one sentence made everyone speechless. No matter how powerful and capable they were, the girls here were just a group of girls who had not even reached adulthood. How could they be as sharp as Noah, who had rolled and crawled in the dark world of the dark bullet? If you still want to argue, then say all you want here. Noah walked past everyone and headed toward the abandoned church, as if he could not stand it any longer. I'll go in first. After saying that, Noah did not even wait for the others to reply. He walked directly toward the door of the abandoned church, pushed it open, and entered the church. Teacher. Seeing that Noah did not give her any face, Laius chased after him angrily like a young girl, which was rare for her. Seeing this, Himejima Jurai and Kitten also quickly followed. Even Genova and Irina looked at each other and followed in silence. As soon as he entered the church, Noah saw it. On the cross at the front of the church, a person was tied to it. His head was hanging, and he was unconscious. Kana. Laius, who had caught up from behind, saw the person on the cross, and her pretty face changed abruptly. Then, an angry expression appeared on her face as she shouted to the surroundings. Korkobor. Come out. As soon as her voice trailed off, a mocking voice rang. Don't be so hasty, Sazak's sister. This is a greeting gift. We won't kill him right away. As this sentence echoed throughout the church, a heavy pressure suddenly filled the surroundings. Laius, Himejima Jurai, Kitten, Genova, Irina, and the others who caught up froze and could not move. Only Noah narrowed his eyes slightly as if he was not affected at all. He raised his head and looked at the top of the cross. There a figure slowly descended. It was a man wearing an exquisite luxurious robe. With the cross as the background, the man looked like an angel descending from the sky. With wings on his back, he landed lightly and appeared in front of everyone. Of course, that was not a real angel, because a real angel would not have such pitch-black wings. Seeing the wings on the man's back, everyone except Noah had a serious expression. On the man's back, there were 5 pairs of 10 wings. The level of an angel and a fallen angel was determined by the number of wings. Whether it was an angel or a fallen angel, currently, the highest level was 6 pairs of 12 wings. In other words, the man was only one step away from the highest level, which was 6 pairs of 12 wings. This was the fallen angel cadre, who had survived the battle with the gods and demons Korkobor. Looking at Noah from above, Korkobor smiled. I've been wanting to meet you for a long time, Godslayer. Chapter 626. I've wanted to see you for a long time, Godslayer. Although he said this, Korkobor's condescending gaze at Noah was full of ridicule and mockery. Even if he used his knees to think, Noah knew why Korkobor was behaving this way. A mere human actually claims to have killed a god. When Asashel told me this, I almost burst out laughing. Without Noah saying it himself, Korkobor unscrupulously explained why he looked at Noah with such a gaze. If gods and demon kings were so easy to kill, I wouldn't have had to struggle so hard to survive during the great war between the three forces. Kid, once you've seen the power of gods and demon kings, you'll never be able to say such things. Korkobor sneered. However, your stupid words made me happy for a while, so you can continue to call yourself a god slayer. There should be many people like me who find it quite funny. It's the best way to pass the time in these boring days without war. Listening to Korkabor's mocking words, Noah only glanced at him, and his shoulders immediately relaxed. I see. Is this the ability of a fallen angel cadre? Oh, Korkabor raised his eyebrows. What? Do you still want to regain your face in front of me? No, I'm just a little emotional. I thought too highly of you before. Noah curled his lips. You know what? After Sazax saw me, he no longer suspected that I was a godslayer. Sazax. Korkabor was slightly startled. Isn't there a very good saying? A strong person can clearly know the strength of an existence that is also a strong person, and an existence that is stronger than him. Noah raised his eyes slightly and looked at Korkabor. You can't even tell what kind of strength your opponent has. No wonder you can only struggle at death's door under the hands of gods and demon kings. A ferocious glint flashed across Kokeber's eyes, and the smile on his face turned slightly savage. Not bad. You have a sharp tongue. I'll tear that mouth of yours apart, and bring your head to Sazax. I'll tell him how bad his taste is. Kokeber. Laius could not help but step forward and stare at Kokeber. Do you really want to start a war between the three forces? What? You've already seen through it, haven't you? Kokebor spread his hands and feigned helplessness. Originally, I thought that if I snatched the holy sword, that guy Michael would not be able to hold back and bring his troops to kill me. In the end, he only sent 2 unknown holy sword emissaries to their deaths. I had no choice but to snatch this little girl. With that, Kokeber floated to Kanna's side, who was tied to the cross. He reached out and placed his hand on the unconscious Kanna's shoulder. Since I can't do anything to the angels, then I can only do something to the demons. Coincidentally, I have my eyes on her. As long as I snatch her, Seraph should be here. With you here too, Sazax will not be able to hold back an attack, right? This is great. Leah's expression turned extremely ugly. Have you gone crazy? Crazy? I'll really go crazy if this continues. Kokeber could not help but laugh out loud, looking a little deranged. Ever since the war ended, I've been extremely bored every day. That guy Asashel even said that he would not start a second war. When I think about how I can only live in this boring life for countless years, I can't help but want to destroy everything. That's right. I can't take it anymore. Kokeber looked coldly at Laius. Since everyone doesn't want to fight anymore, then even if I'm the only one left, I'll wage war against the angels and demons. I'll kill the 4 great demon kings, and then kill Michael. No one can stop me. Everyone couldn't help but shudder when they heard Kokeber's crazy speech. I see. Is that why you invaded this town? Noah was the only one who wasn't affected at all as he spoke calmly. Because Laius and Kanna are in this town. As long as we capture them, or even kill them, we'll incur the wrath of the demon camp, right? Laius' brother was one of the 4 great demon kings, Lucifer. Compared to Laius, Kanna's background was just as strong. As for why, Kanna's sister was also one of the 4 great demon kings. One of the 4 great demon kings, Leviathan Seraph Cassidy. She was Kanna's sister by blood. In other words, Laius and Kanna were not only the next leaders of the pure-blooded demon family, but their brothers and sisters were also 2 of the 4 great demon kings. If something happened to Laius and Kanna, then Sazax and Seraph would probably go crazy, right? When that happens, Kokeber's goal of starting a war would be achieved. Well, choosing this town is more or less because of the Godslayer. Kokeber looked at Noah with contempt. I just want to see what a stupid human who dares to claim to have killed a god looks like. After killing you, I'll tell others that I've killed the person who claimed to have killed a god, proving that I'm stronger than a god. If that happens, Michael will go crazy too, right? Should I say that this person is smart? Or should I say that this person is stupid? Should I say that he is smart? This person is like a madman who wants to start a war between the 3 factions by himself. Should I say that he is stupid? This person is meticulous enough to plan everything. First, he used the holy sword to involve the church in his dispute, then he kidnapped Kanna and got the demons involved. After that, he wanted to kill Noah and Laius, driving the angel camp and the demon camp into a frenzy, so that he could succeed. However, just as Tsong Na had said, Noah's identity as the God Slayer had indeed attracted people with ill intentions like Korkabor. This was indeed a sensitive matter for the three major factions, and there was a possibility that it could trigger a war between the three major factions. In the end, it was impossible to get rid of a fly no matter how hard one tried. Unfortunately, Kokheber still miscalculated. I stole the holy sword, but in the end, the highest ruler of the angel camp, Michael, did not come. I stole the demon king's sister. And in the end, the highest ruler of the demon camp, the four great demon kings, did not come either. Noah could not help but laugh. It was a very sarcastic laugh. You just want to tell us that you put on a one-man show, right? Kokheber snorted coldly. As long as I kill you here, kill Sazak's and Seraphil's sister, and kill everyone from the angel camp and the demon camp, the three-way war between the demons, angels, and fallen angels will break out sooner or later. I've waited for so long, and I don't mind waiting a little longer. With that, Kokheber turned around and looked at Kana, who was tied to the cross. The corner of his mouth curled into a ruthless arc. I thought that by capturing this woman, Seraph would be lured over, but if neither Michael nor Seraph comes, then she's useless. Hearing that, Laius had a very bad premonition in her heart. Then she finally thought of something, and her pretty face changed drastically. Amidst the sound of space vibrating, a rich power of light appeared in Kokheber's hand. It was as if a large number of fireflies had gathered together and gathered in his palm. Not long after, a dazzling, gigantic spear of light that was taller than a person and as gorgeous as if it was specially decorated appeared in Kokheber's hand. Kokheber raised it up. Don't hate me. If you want to hate you for being Seraphil's sister. Hate this overly peaceful world. With that, the gigantic spear of light was swung by Kokheber. It rubbed against the air, and amidst the sharp sound of air tearing, it viciously pierced through the heart of Kana, who was tied to the cross. No, Liaz let out a miserable cry. Both Jurai Himashima and Kitten widened their eyes, but they knew that they could do nothing to stop it. Almost instinctively, they turned their heads away. Only Genova and Irina undid the bandages on the Holy Sword of Destruction, while Irina transformed the Holy Sword of Mimicry from its rope form into a sword form. They raised the Holy Sword in their hands and prepared to fight Korkbor. Under such circumstances, the dazzling spear of light landed heavily on the cross. Boom! A loud explosion rang out. Chapter 6:27. Bam! Amidst the deafening roar, the tall cross inside the abandoned church suddenly exploded under the direct attack of the spear of light containing terrifying power. It completely turned into fragments, shooting in all directions like bullets. Danger! Genova and Irina, who were already prepared, were the first to react. They each raised the holy swords in their hands and used them as a shield in front of them. With a series of clanking sounds, they blocked all the pieces of debris that shot out like bullets. Minister! Junai and Kitten also reacted in an instant. They both leaped in front of Laius and crossed their arms in front of their bodies. In front of Junai, an intricate magic circle spun out and blocked all the debris like a shield. The Kitten was even more direct. She didn't even use magic, and instead spread her arms in front of Laius with her superior defensive prowess, stopping all the pebbles from hitting her. Kana! Laius, who was protected by Junai and Kitten behind her, could only stare at the cross anxiously as she screamed at the top of her lungs. However, almost at the same time, a calm voice came from beside Laius. Don't worry, Kana is fine. Upon hearing that, everyone, including Kobold, who was holding the spear of light, instinctively turned their eyes to the source of the voice. When everyone saw the scene in front of them clearly, they were all stunned. The one who spoke was, of course, Noah. However, he was not the only one in Noah's direction. Without anyone noticing, Kana, who was still tied to the cross a second ago, was now in Noah's arms. She was being carried in a princess carry by Noah. Wadash! Kobold was shocked. He quickly turned his head and looked at the spot where the cross used to be. There, the cross had suddenly collapsed into a pile of debris and no longer existed. Kana, on the other hand, was lying in Noah's arms. Undoubtedly, a second ago, Kobold was still aiming his attack at Kana, who was firmly tied to the cross. At this time, Song Na was lying in Noah's arms. What did this mean? This meant that in the instant Kokheber launched his attack, Noah had not only arrived in front of the cross, but also beside Kokheber in a way that Kokheber could not detect, but had also rescued Song Na and returned to his original position. The way Kokheber looked at Noah changed completely. When, ignoring Kokheber's shock and confusion, Noah did not even look at Kokheber as he squatted down. It was only then that Leah came to her senses and hurried to Noah's side. She crouched down and checked Kanna's body before heaving a sigh of relief. There weren't any obvious injuries on Song Na's body. He had only fainted. Come to think of it, Kokheber must have knocked Song Na unconscious from the very beginning and captured him. Then, when Song Na's kin rose up to resist, he immediately launched a large-scale counterattack, which led to the explosion of the student council and the annihilation of Sidi's kin. After handing Kanna to Leah, Noah stood up and looked up at Kokheber. The moment Noah stared at him, Kokheber felt an inexplicable chill in his heart, as if he was being stared at by some monster. His body trembled, and Kokheber could not help but sway. What is this feeling of danger? Oh. Noah narrowed his eyes slightly and smiled. Looks like you're not that weak after all. Even if you couldn't detect your opponent's strength when you first met him, you still felt danger when you were being stared at. You didn't lose your reputation as a fallen angel. Kokheber was speechless as if he was insulted. Despicable human who only knows how to play tricks. Whether it's a trick or not, you'll know soon enough, Noah said calmly. Well, since we're already at this point, there's no need to hide anymore. Hurry up and call your companions out. Companions? Kokheber was stunned. What companions? Noah frowned. What? Are you the only one from the fallen angel camp who came to this town? I did bring a few subordinates, but those guys aren't qualified to be companions. Kokheber sneered. However, it doesn't matter. I've said it before. Even if I'm alone, I'll fight this war to the end. So don't worry. I don't have anyone from the fallen angel camp who can be called my companions. Hearing this, Noah's eyes suddenly flashed. Kokheber is the only one from the fallen angel camp who came? Then, what's with the White Dragon Emperor? Isn't Wally from the fallen angel camp? Moreover, Varley had indeed arrived in this town not too long ago, and there wasn't much of a difference in timing between him and Kokbor when he had infiltrated this town. If that's the case, why hasn't Wally come out yet? And Kokheber said that he's the only one from the fallen angel camp? Could it be that Kokheber doesn't know that Wally has come to this town? Or could it be that Wally and Kokheber aren't on the same side? As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Noah fully activated his sensory ability and scanned the entire area that his sensory ability could cover. After confirming that there was indeed no aura that could compare to Kokheber's, he calmed down. Well, that's fine too. Noah's gaze turned cold as he looked at Kokheber. Then, I don't need to worry about other things. I'll just deal with you directly. Kokheber was enraged. Don't get too carried away. The 5 pairs of black wings on his back shook, and Kokheber's entire body emitted a dazzling halo as he gathered an extremely large amount of light power. Die. As Kokheber roared, the massive amount of light power directly transformed into a gigantic spear of light as the air vibrated. It continued to absorb the light power that was hovering around Kokheber, and as if a heart was beating, its body expanded bit by bit. Seeing Kokheber raise the spear of light that looked like it could pierce through heaven and earth, the expressions of Leah's and the others completely changed. Get out of here, quick! Without any hesitation, Junai and the little cat spread their demonic wings and darted out of the abandoned church, with Leah's in the lead while carrying Kangna in her arms. Genova and Irina also turned around and rushed out of the door of the abandoned church without a care in the world, leaving this dangerous place. Then, as if a heavy mountain with a sharp tip had descended from the sky, the spear of light suddenly shot out and landed heavily on Noah, the only one who was still standing in the church. Against the wind pressure, the spear of light landed heavily on him. Dong! The abandoned church in the middle of the forest was abruptly shattered by a violent shockwave, stirring up a violent gale and intense flames that instantly enveloped the entire scene. Kacha kacha. Without any suspense, the ground was continuously cracked by the shockwave-like winds and waves that rippled outwards one after another. Pa 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 pa. Trees were toppled one after another. Aya. With Leah's in the lead, the group of girls who escaped the abandoned church without looking back were all caught in the violent shockwave and blown away like kites with their strings cut. Some fell to the ground, while others directly crashed into tree trunks and slid down. Relying on her superior defense to withstand the impact, Kitten stabilized herself after rolling on the ground, and looking at the intense shockwave and flames before her, her big, watery eyes could not help but tremble. Teacher. It was not just Kitten. Even Leah's and Junai were looking ahead worriedly and kept quiet. Boom. At that moment, a clear muffled sound suddenly rang out from the center of the intense flames and violent shockwave. Growling. Then, with a muffled cry, a figure was sent flying backward, breaking through the flames and shockwaves like a hot knife through butter before crashing heavily on the ground. The figure did not slow down as it continued to glide across the cracked ground, digging a trench that was dozens of meters long with its body before stopping not far away from Leah's and the others. Leah's and the others widened their eyes when they saw the figure that glided to not far away from them. Chapter 628. Leah's, Junai, Kitten, Genova, and Irina watched as the man was sent flying by a heavy object, leaving a long trench in the ground and slid down in front of them. The 5 girls could barely react in time. Meanwhile, Kokeber, who was rubbing his face against the ground, leaped up abruptly. He covered his face as he stared ahead in fury and disbelief. How is this possible? Under Cockbur's gaze, a figure slowly walked out from the center of the raging storm and the intense light of the flames. It was none other than Noah, who was completely unscathed. How is it? Noah asked calmly as he walked toward Korkabor. Although he's a fallen angel cadre, it shouldn't be embarrassing to be kicked away by a godslayer, right? Hearing that, Laius and the others finally understood what was going on. However, after understanding, all the girls stared at Noah and Korkabor in a daze, unable to react in time. Kicking a fallen angel cadre away? Is this for real? Bastard. Korkabor's face was terrifyingly dark, but it was more of disbelief and anger. Why? Why is my attack ineffective against you? If it had been anyone else, they would have thought that Noah had blocked Kokeber's attack and then returned the favor with a kick, right? However, as the attacker, Korkabor clearly saw it. The spear of light that he had unleashed with all his might actually stopped when it landed on Noah's body. Then, it shattered and exploded, destroying the abandoned church and the surrounding environment into a complete mess. However, it could not bring any harm to Noah at all. That was the reason why Korkabor was shocked and in disbelief. What? Didn't I tell you? Noah raised his hand as though he was trying to show his body to the old man, enunciating each and every word clearly. After killing the fallen god, the god of disobedience, my physique as a godslayer has changed. As long as it's not an attack that can harm a god, unless it's a direct physical attack, all mystical powers are ineffective against this body. That includes the light powers of angels and fallen angels, as well as the magic powers of demons. At this point, Noah looked at Korkabor mockingly. Unfortunately, your power doesn't seem to be enough to threaten God. My unscathed body is proof of that. You. Korkabor could not help but take a step back. He looked at Noah as if he was looking at a monster. Are you still human? Unfortunately, you won't understand even if I explain it to you. Noah shrugged helplessly and looked at Korkabor with a faint smile. So, it's better for you to treat me as a human with a special physique. Stop arguing with me over there. Because of Noah's nonchalant attitude, which completely disregarded him, Kokeber was enraged. Dense light energy slowly surged out of Kokeber's body, filling the air above the empty space. So what if you're a godslayer? I'll never lose to you. With that shout, the power of light emanating from Kokeber's body suddenly turned and converged into a sword of light in his hand. As long as I kill you, the godslayer, and then go to Michael's place to show off, my goal will be achieved. After saying that, the wings on Korkabor's back flapped, and his body shot out like an arrow from a bow. He suddenly charged in Noah's direction, and the sword of light in his hand, which was wrapped in rich light power, brought along a sharp force that tore through the air as it viciously slashed down at Noah. Ear-piercing sonic booms rang out continuously. You really don't learn to be obedient. Facing the incoming sword of light, Noah raised his hand and clenched it into a fist. He pulled his body apart and got into a fighting stance as the light of magic rose from his body. All evildoers, be afraid of my power. Now, I shall obtain the majesty of 10 mountains, the strength of 100 rivers, and the strength of 1,000 dragons. The majestic me shall raise the ferocious power of slaying dragons, words that could give him the physique of a dragon, divine skills that far exceeded intuition and wildness, and the ability to kill dragon-like creatures reverberated in the surroundings like sound waves. On the stone plate with 10 patterns connected to its outline, one of the patterns suddenly lit up. With the support of the dragonoid incarnation, Noah only felt that his limbs were surging with power that was many times stronger than a human's. His senses instantly became sharper than anything else, and a glint flashed across his eyes. He raised his hand and let his fist collide with the sword of light. Clang! When the fleshly fist collided with the sword of light that did not have a physical body, it actually caused the sound of metal clashing, and a large amount of sparks sputtered. Of course, this stalemate did not last for long. Kacha! Even though Kokheber had deliberately concentrated a large amount of the power of light on the sword of light in his hand, the absolute curse resistance that belonged to the Godslayer still caused the sword of light that struck Noah's fist to crack. In the end, with a crisp bang, it directly exploded. And in the midst of the sparks that did not have time to dissipate, the fist that contained the power of a dragon and the power to slay dragons landed heavily on Kokheber's chest under the gaze of his contracted pupils. Bang! A muffled sound that was many times louder than before rang out. Kokheber only felt an unparalleled force hit his body heavily, causing him to feel pain in his chest. After his feet scraped a deep mark that was nearly 10 meters long on the ground, his body crashed heavily into a tree trunk, and the tree trunk behind him was shaken into 2 pieces. With his back against the broken tree trunk, Kokheber's face turned red, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, his legs went soft, and his body slid down the tree trunk to sit on the ground. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. After being hit in the chest by a punch that was comparable to that of a dragon, even though he was a fallen angel cadre that was recorded in the Bible, he still ended up seriously injured. It was not that Kokheber was too weak, but that his opponent was too foul. Yes, not only was his opponent strong, but he was also very foul. In terms of strength alone, Noah was already above Kokheber. Coupled with his physique that was resistant to foul spells, Kokheber, whose power of light was completely ineffective, naturally could not hurt Noah, and could not effectively defend himself. If the sword of light just now could more or less offset the strength of Noah's punch, it would not have ended up like this. The most tragic part was that as soon as Kobold's sword of light came into contact with Noah's body, it would be nullified by Noah's physique, which had the ability to resist curses. Kobold could not even block the attack in the slightest, so he took a solid punch from the giant dragon. And that was the result. The famous fallen angel cadre was defeated in one move. Looking at this scene, Liaz, Junai, and Little Kitten looked at each other, and found a trace of shock in each other's eyes. The last time they faced Rizzle, Noah's attack with the white horse was actually a little more shocking. But that was after all just the scene they saw through a television screen. How could it be more shocking than the actual scene in front of them? Moreover, Rizzle was just a superior demon, and it was not a big deal that he was defeated in one move. Kokheber, on the other hand, was a cadre of the fallen angels. A person who could survive under the hands of a god and a demon king could not be compared at all. As such, it was naturally even more shocking. As for Genova and Irina, their expressions became extremely solemn. It was because in the hearts of these two believers, they were gradually becoming more and more certain of Noah's record of slaying a god. Under such circumstances, Noah just slowly walked up to Kokheber and looked at him from above. Just like how Kokheber looked at Noah from above in the abandoned church at the very beginning, his eyes were full of ridicule and mockery. You're a historical figure who once survived under the hands of a god and a demon king, right? This time, can you also survive under the hands of a god slayer, like me? Kokheber raised his head with difficulty and stared at Noah, and suddenly laughed. Anyway, I'm satisfied that I've lived longer than a god and a demon king. Everyone was stunned by his words. Chapter 629. Live longer than the gods and demon kings? Korkabor's words, however, left Liaz, Junai, Kitten, Genova, Irina, and the other bystanders stunned. What did that mean? Living longer than the demon king was pardonable. After all, the former 4 demon kings had all died in the Great War between the 3 factions. It was understandable for Kokbor, who had lived until now, to say that he had lived longer than the demon kings. But what did he mean by living longer than the gods? Even Noah was stunned and confused, let alone Liaz and the rest. Kokbor laughed out loud as he saw everyone's reaction, including Noah. It was as if he found it funny from the bottom of his heart, as if he was mocking their ignorance. That's right. You don't know yet, so let me tell you. The next moment, Kokbor's words were enough to shake everyone's heart. In the great war between the 3 factions, other than the 4 demon kings, the gods had also died. Korkabor's laughter echoed with the word dead, echoing clearly throughout the empty space. Liaz and the rest were all stunned. What? Irina was the first to speak, a little confused. What did he just say? No one answered Irina's question. That was because everyone else also had a blank look on their faces. Even Noah was shocked. You said that God is dead? What? As the God Slayer, you don't know that the God in the Bible is dead? Kokbor held his chest and coughed as he mocked. But it's normal that you don't know. Humans are a bunch of creatures who can't avoid praying to the gods. No one knows what will happen to humans without the gods. Even Athashel ordered us not to let his subordinates know. Only the leaders and some members of the 3 factions know the truth. But I can tell you clearly that God is indeed dead. This time, everyone finally came to their senses. God is dead? Both Genova and Irina were in a daze. It was as if their souls had left their bodies, and they had no reaction. Do you know what you're talking about? Liaz could not help but cry out in disbelief. I've never even heard of such a thing. No, everyone should have heard of it. Your superiors should have also told you that out of the 3 great factions, all of them have fallen to the point where they can no longer continue without humans, right? Kokbor laughed coldly. You have to know that in the heavenly realm, angels are created by God. Even if they die, God can continue to create new angels. Under such circumstances, why would the heavenly realm become unable to continue without human beings? Hearing this, Genova and Irina's delicate bodies shuddered at the same time, and even their pupils contracted. Could it be? A guess also emerged in Noah's mind. Is it because the God in the Bible is dead, and pure angels can no longer be born? That's why the heavens have fallen to the point where they can't continue without relying on humans. What? Don't you know very well? Kokbor laughed in an extremely sarcastic manner. After the Great War, all 3 factions suffered heavy losses. The angel faction lost their god that they relied on. The demon faction lost all demon kings and most of the pure-blooded demons, and the fallen angel faction had nothing left except for their leaders. It was an indescribable tragedy, especially for angels and fallen angels. If they did not mate with humans, they would not be able to reproduce at all. The number of fallen angels could still be increased through the fall of angels, but pure angels would no longer increase after losing their god. This is the best evidence. As soon as he finished speaking, a bang was heard. Elena had already fainted and collapsed on the ground. Impossible. Impossible. Genova used the holy sword as a support. Her knees gave way, and she knelt on the ground. After a while, she screamed in Kokbor's direction. You're lying. If God is no longer here, then what's with our power? The exorcists from the churches could only use the power of exorcism after receiving God's blessing, and stand out from the category of ordinary humans. If God was dead, then how could the exorcists of the churches continue to exist? That Michael fellow did well. Kokbor answered Genova's question with a funny look on his face. He replaced God and controlled the angel and human believers. He used the system that God left behind to manage human beliefs, so that the prayers, blessings, and exorcisms that were dedicated to God could be carried out to a certain extent. However, there were still loopholes in some aspects. If you think about it carefully, you'll understand. Compared to before, there are many more cases of heretics and believers being abandoned, right? Therefore, people with devout beliefs like Aisha would also be abandoned and reduced to witches. This was the reason. After hearing Kokbor's words, Genova sat on the ground, paralyzed. His expression was extremely pathetic, and one could not bear to look at him. As a servant of God, serving God was his mission to live to this day. He had devoted his entire life to his belief in God, and was even willing to sacrifice himself for it. This was a believer. Now that they knew that God no longer existed, it was equivalent to losing the meaning of life for believers who believed in God. It was only natural that they would end up like this. In the end, I was forced to flee in a pathetic state during the war. After the war, they all died before me. What am I not satisfied with? Kokbor laughed out loud. Right. Isn't there a God-slayer here? Perhaps he was the one who killed the God of the Bible. This sentence was complete nonsense. If what Kokbor said was true, then God had died in the war between the three powers. However, the war between the three powers had already ended hundreds of years ago. How could it be Noah's doing? To be able to die in the hands of a God-slayer, and live longer than God and the Demon King, I'm satisfied. Kokbor laughed maniacally. Come on, give me the final blow. Hearing this, Noah's expression turned cold. Since you want to die so much, I'll fulfill your wish. After saying this, Noah was about to raise his fist when his gaze suddenly froze. Whoosh! In the distant horizon, a flash of light like a meteor streaked across the sky, piercing through space and falling from the sky towards Noah's direction. Almost at the same time, Noah released the mana flowing in his body. The surging magic power directly turned into a wave of air. Under the state of the Dragonoid avatar, it condensed and formed a thin layer of light curtain around Noah's body. The layer of light was connected to each other like dragon scales. It was the air scale ability that Noah used in the battle against Perseus. Its defensive power and sturdiness were comparable to Tony's steel barrier, the immortal body's authority ability. In the next moment, a flash of light from the horizon fell on Noah's body. Boom! As if a meteor had hit Earth, a monstrous impact spread out in a ring shape, setting off violent wind waves and bursting out with blinding flashes that shook the surroundings. Lias and the others did not even have time to react before they were drowned by the terrifying impact and disappeared without a trace. And at the center of the impact, Noah just raised one hand, his whole body rippling with the air scale's light membrane, blocking the terrifying attack from the front. Looking up, Noah saw it clearly. In front of Noah, a thick figure was directly hitting the air scale that covered Noah's body. The scene was like a meteor hitting a person whose body was shining, and the two were in a stalemate. As for the body of the meteor, it was a person wearing pure white full-body armor. The armor was inlaid with blue jade everywhere, even his face was covered under the armor, and a pair of blue light wings on his back. Seeing the pair of light wings, Noah's eyes flashed. Wally, the one who came was the White Dragon Emperor. Wally raised his head under the helmet, and said word by word. I said, I will come to you again. As soon as he finished, Wally raised a hand. Divide eat. The next moment, Baoyu on Wally's armor issued a deep voice, causing Noah's air scales to suddenly darken. Boom! A violent bang resounded through the sky. Chapter 630. Gravel rolled on the cracked ground inch by inch, stirring up a crisp and subtle sound that echoed in the surrounding air. The center of the forest, which was originally located in the same corner as the abandoned church, was missing a large piece. What was left was the cracked reddish-yellow land, and the fallen tree debris. In the center of such a wasteland, two figures stood facing each other. On the side, a man with 5 pairs of dark wings on his back fell to the ground and fainted. Looking at the figure covered in thick white armor opposite him, Noah raised his hand and looked up. There, the air scales that were originally strong enough to rival the immortal body were now extremely dim and weak. It could probably only block the attack of an ordinary superior demon. Of course, this was not Noah's doing. Did you notice? On the opposite side of Noah, Varley, who was covered in white armor, spoke. This is my sacred gear, the ability of White Dragon Emperor's diving dividing. It can reduce the power of the people I touch by half every 10 seconds. The reduced power will become my food for my own use. Wally seemed to be trying to prove the authenticity of his words. The light wings behind him spread out, sprinkling star-like particles, and the aura on his body rose abruptly. These powers were just usurped from your body. Unless you directly defeat me, soon you, the God Slayer, will become weaker than a human child. Hearing this, Noah just clenched his fist and remained silent. It wasn't that Noah didn't know about the legendary sacred gear that was transformed from the two heavenly dragons. Therefore, without Varley saying it himself, Noah also knew. It was said that the ability of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear was to double the owner's power and give the doubled power to others. The ability of the White Dragon Emperor's diving dividing was to reduce the strength of the person it came into contact with by half, and to use the reduced strength for its own use. This was the legendary ability of the Red Dragon Emperor and the White Dragon Emperor. The so-called God-slaying gear could be seen from these two sacred gear. There was no doubt that whether it was the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear or the White Dragon Emperor's diving dividing, their doubled and halved abilities were only temporary. If it was permanent, it would be too heaven-defying. But even so, as long as there was enough time, one of the two owners of the sacred gear would be able to increase their strength to the level of a god or demon king, while the other would be able to weaken a god or demon king to the point where they would be weaker than an ordinary human. In this way, even a god or demon king could be defeated. Fortunately, these two sacred gear required time and could only be used once every 10 seconds. Moreover, if the user's own strength was too weak, he wouldn't even be able to withstand the doubled and half power, which would lead to his own collapse. Therefore, even if it was very powerful, it was not heaven-defying. However, when Varley had just activated his sacred gear ability, it did not reduce the power by half every 10 seconds, but it directly weakened Noah's air scale to the point where it directly disappeared. Noah could clearly feel it. When Varley activated his sacred gear ability, the strength of his own air scale was constantly reduced by half, and in less than a second, it was only left with this strength. In other words, in less than a second, Varley had activated the White Dragon Emperor's diving dividing ability more than once. This was not because Varley's words were pure lies. It was because Varley's explanation was not over yet. So that's how it is. Noah clenched his fists and stared at the pure white armor on Varley's body. Is that the balance breaker? Balance breaker. That was the ultimate domain of the sacred gear. When the sacred gear holder's thoughts and wishes were so intense that they could reverse the flow of the world, the sacred gear in the holder's body could reach another domain and exert extraordinary power. That domain was called the sacred gear's balance breaker. Varley was able to continuously use the half power in such a short period of time, and he had not only a pair of wings on his body, but also a full body armor. That should be Varley's balance breaker, right? That's right, this is my balance breaker, Wally answered without hiding anything. When using the balance breaker, I can have the opponent's power at any time and in any proportion. The balance breaker of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear can double my power at any time and in any proportion. However, every time I use the ability, it will consume some power, and it will even shorten the duration of the balance breaker. That's all. That being said, Vale's voice was full of emotion. However, should I really say that he is worthy of being called the Godslayer? It was natural for Varley to have such feelings. Because Varley did not seize the power of Noah's body at all, he only seized the power of the air scales. Noah's physique originally had a part that was not affected by external negative forces. Although Varley's half power was effective against Shindu and could offset Noah's curse resistance, an extremely obvious negative effect like power halved was not effective against Noah. As a result, Varley only seized the power of Noah's air scales, but it did not have any effect on Noah's own power. At best, it only made Noah's air scales ineffective. At that moment, Noah glanced at Varley. You came here. Don't tell me you want to trigger a war between the three forces like Korkabor? Why would I? Varley spread his hands. Although for me, it would not be boring if there was a war, but Asashel specifically told me not to mess around and to bring Korkabor back. So, can you give Korkabor to me? Hearing this, Noah did not answer, but looked at Varley with a faint smile. This guy wanted to kill me until just now, and he even wanted to touch the people around me. And you want me to let him go? Korkabor is just a small character to you and me. It's not worth making a big fuss over him, Varley replied. Instead of wasting unnecessary energy on this small character, why don't you set your sights on the people in front of you? The people in front of you? Noah was slightly startled. Under Noah's gaze, the voice under Varley's helmet echoed. Hey, where do you think you are in this world? This question directly stumped Noah. After all, Noah had never seen the highest level of power in this world. In response, Varley did not seem to expect Noah to answer from the beginning, and continued to speak. If you really have the ability to kill gods, then in my opinion, you can at least be in the top 20 in this world. Top 20. Noah raised his eyebrows. Don't think that I am underestimating you. This is indeed only my preliminary estimate, but with such an evaluation, you should be satisfied. Varley's voice became a little distant. Just like how demons, angels, fallen angels, and even humans have differences in strength, gods also have differences in strength. There are relatively weak gods, but there are also terrifyingly strong gods. Noah naturally understood this principle. Just like the god of disobedience, there were also levels. The lower level, god of disobedience, could even be sealed by humans themselves. The power of the highest level god of disobedience, such as Velislana, Mekar, and the Trinity of Athena, was much stronger than the lower level, god of disobedience. In this world, the top 10 existences can easily kill gods. Varley's strong and powerful voice passed into Noah's ears. The one ranked first is even said to have unlimited power. Noah immediately understood what Varley meant. You can kill a god, but those in the top 10 can do the same. Moreover, it's easy for them to do so. The one ranked first even has unlimited power. Do you understand why I only ranked you in the top 20? Varley left such a sentence. And my goal is even higher than that. After saying this, Varley directly picked up the unconscious Korkabor, turned around, and flew into the sky. Sooner or later, I will fight with you. Looking at Varley's gradually shrinking figure in the sky, Noah did not speak for a long time. Chapter 631. Colt King Academy Infirmary. That'll do. Noah nodded after spraying disinfectant on the knee of a second-year female student who was injured in PE class, and sticking a medical bandage on it. Remember not to let your knee touch the water. You'll be fine after a while. Yes, thank you, teacher. The female student, who was looking at Noah with eyes full of love, stood up reluctantly. Then, with the help of her blushing classmates, she walked out of the infirmary. Looking at the two female students who were extremely reluctant to leave the infirmary, Noah could not help but smile bitterly even though he was used to this scene. Then, he looked out of the window as his thoughts began to wander. It had been a few days since Korkabor had abducted Kangna, and was taken away by Wally. After that, Noah found a group of girls who were blown away by Wally's attack, and all of them returned to the academy. Only then did he announce the end of this incident. After that, Liaz and Kanna became very busy. They often needed to contact the higher-ups of the demon faction, and report all kinds of things that happened here. After all, the fallen angel cadres did attack the angel faction and the demon faction one after another, causing a dispute between the three factions. According to Liaz, now the three factions seem to be preparing for a discussion about this matter. Otherwise, it was very likely that it would really cause another war. Therefore, during this period, the Student Union and the Supernatural Research Department became very busy. Kitten had been at Liaz's place for the past few days and did not go home. Even Aisha went to the student union to continue the follow-up treatment of Kanna's kin under Kanna's pleas. She did not come back recently. In other words, Noah had been coming here alone for the past few days. And occasionally, Noah would still think of what Wally said that day. Top 20. Wally said that although he had not seen Noah's true strength, since Noah could kill gods, then, even if Noah killed the weakest god, he could still be ranked in the top 20 of the world's combat strength. Frankly speaking, the existence that could kill gods could only be ranked in the top 20 more or less surprised Noah. One must know that in the world of god-slayers, there were only 7 people in the world, including Noah, who could achieve the same result. And in this world, the people who could kill gods could not even be ranked in the top 10. It was easy to imagine how strong those fellows in the top 10 were. Of course, that evaluation. Wally's evaluation was based on the fact that Noah could kill the weakest gods. Most of the guys in the top 10 were also gods. If Noah had the ability to kill those gods, then he could be ranked in the top 3, let alone the top 10. Therefore, Noah was really uncertain about his ranking in this world. In terms of strength alone, perhaps as Wally said, he could at least be ranked in the top 20. However, if Noah could use the warrior, avatar, then even the one ranked first would probably be defeated by Noah. From this point of view, Noah's strength was really difficult to judge. It could only be said that in terms of strength alone, Noah was definitely not the strongest. Wally also said that the one ranked first had unlimited power. And no matter how arrogant Noah was, he could not claim that he had unlimited power. It seems that there are still many things in this world that I don't know. Noah muttered to himself. At this time, in front of Noah, a small communication magic circle suddenly flashed. Noah came back to his senses, and then he saw Liath's figure appear on the small communication magic circle. Liath looked around the infirmary. Looks like you're not very busy. Just in time, teacher. Come to the supernatural research department. Noah could not help but feel suspicious when he saw Liath say such words directly to his face. What? Is there a problem? Sort of. On the small communication magic circle, Liath's deep laughter began to sound. Let me introduce you to my new servants. Colt King Academy, Supernatural Research Department. Looking at the 3 girls in front of him, Noah fell into a state of speechlessness. Yo. The one who greeted Noah with a very energetic voice was a cute girl with chestnut-colored twin ponytails who winked at Noah. We meet again. With the energetic girl's greeting as the beginning, of the other 2 girls, one nodded at Noah with a serious face, while the other was a little nervous and shy, as if afraid that Noah would scold her. Irina, Genova, Aisha. The 3 girls who were also from the church stood side by side in front of Noah, making Noah fall into a state of speechlessness. It was not because of anything else. That was because Noah sensed the presence of magic from the 3 girls who came from the church. The magic that belonged to the demons. In other words, the 3 devout believers in front of him had all reincarnated into demons, including Aisha. Let me introduce them to you. The one who said this was Liath, who had been looking at Noah with a funny expression, as if she was expecting Noah to be surprised. I don't need to introduce their names, you already know them. So let me introduce their new identities to you. Liath pointed at Genova. My knight Genova. After that, Liath pointed at Irina. My pawn. Wisteria Irina. In the end, Liath pointed at the shy Aisha, who did not dare to look at Noah. Also my pawn, Aisha Aljet. The 3 above are my recent additions, Liath said to Noah as if she was mocking him. Please take care of us from now on, master. Noah, Aisha, Genova, and Irina used their own expressions to say that to Noah in unison. Please take care of us. Noah felt that he could not keep up with the pace in front of him anymore. Undoubtedly, they had only been separated for a few days. What was with this change? Genova and Irina were believers of the church. How did they suddenly become Liath's demons? And Aisha, the girl who lived under the same roof as him, the cute girl who was like a little sister to him, how did she become Liath's pawn? Noah did not know how to react, and could only look at Liath speechlessly, which made her laugh. Don't look at me like that. Letting these 3 children reincarnate as demons and become my pawn only happened yesterday. It's not that I didn't want to tell you. Ahahaha, it's not just you. I'm surprised myself. Irina laughed awkwardly before tears welled up in her eyes. I didn't expect that a devout believer like me would become a demon one day. This must be a punishment from the heavens. What does it matter? The Lord is no longer here, isn't he? Genova said as if he had given up on himself. Since the Lord is no longer here, then it doesn't matter if we become demons. In other words, the 2 girls chose to reincarnate as demons because they knew that the God they believed in was dead? After knowing that the Lord is no longer here, Genova and Irina are already heretics to the church. Both of them were banished by the church, and because they had nowhere else to go, they became my pawn. Lyeth crossed her arms and seemed to be in a good mood. By the way, Aisha has the twilight healing in her body. When she was reincarnated, she used 4 pawns. Although Irina doesn't have a sacred gear, she also used 4 pawns. Their potential is pretty good. There was a limit to using the evil pawn to reincarnate as a demon. If the reincarnated target had super strength or super potential, then it would require more pawns to be used. In other words, the potential and value of Isha and Irina, who had each consumed 4 pawns, were already very close to the value of a rook. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.